top pit, how sweet. If you really want it, gotta own it. Fought through it, we was at the lowest. Blood, sweat, tears, the components. Riding all year, now's the moment. We are not friends, we are opponents. Yeah, I'm coming for mine, yeah. I'm making a play, the game on the line, yeah. I've been on the grind, yeah. I jump in the spot, I made it my time, yeah. Look in the sky, yeah. The stars align, no shade to shine. Can't stop it already, emotional work and devotion. We put in this time, look. You won't stop my stride. I'll just break your line. I don't tolerate wasted time. Coming to take what's mine. Can't stop, won't stop, won't. If you really want it, gotta own it. Blood, sweat, tears, liquor, if you take us down, keep fighting. Off day, gotta bounce back. Might have took an L, we don't count that though. Remember back, we was down bad. Now the way we looking, gotta doubt that. I know you see the way we moving, giving game. Better listen like a student, don't talk about it, be about it, do it. Look here, really ain't nothing to it. I got proof for you like tenfold. Always down for the team, 10 toes. You been hater, we been known. Won't quit till I'm in the end zone. Won't stop till I hit the goal line. Never been the one to need a cosign. Can't stop it already, emotional work and devotion. We put in this bedtime, look. You won't stop my stride. I'll just break your line. I don't tolerate wasted time. Coming to take what's mine. Can't stop, won't stop, won't. If you really want it, gotta own it. Blood, sweat, tears, liquor, if you take us down, keep fighting. At the end, I'll be there waiting for the rest. I don't take pity on the man who couldn't keep up with my best. No contest, no. You won't stop my stride. I'll just break your line. I don't tolerate wasted time. Coming to take what's mine. Can't stop, won't stop, won't. If you really want it, gotta own it. Blood, sweat, tears,
It is the third proper short track visit of the season. First time we head to the proper Northeast since Watkins Glen, and tonight we welcome you to the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where we bring you coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series and tonight's Dropping the Hammer pre-race show. Welcome to the action on the KBueno Racing Network. It is a beautiful day in Sim2Go Racing in the Magic Mile. New Hampshire Motor Speedway is what they call it. Alongside Francisco Bacalao and Keelan Belsha, I'm Kenneth Bueno. We are the voices for you all night long as we take on race number 8 of this 2024-25 4-wide season. Francisco, let's start with you. All right, New Hampshire, it is a new beast compared to what we've seen over the last year or so. It's been since season 5 that we've seen it on the schedule, and the last time we ran here was with the next-gen car. So a bit of familiarity, but a bit of surprises too, given the field, given the playoff situation, and given the fact that New Hampshire and the next-gen car are very different from the last time we saw it.
Yeah, a lot of significant changes have been made to both the car and the racetrack since we've last visited this combination all the way back in 2022. But make no mistake, this is going to be far from easy for these drivers tonight. Very little downforce on these cars. The track grip is just not there, so they're going to be slipping and sliding, and we could see a lot of contact racing here.
And Keelan, this track, our third short track, technically of the season. Definitely not the smallest. We've had both Bristol and Richmond to take the cake on that, but it's a little over a mile in New Hampshire. It is not necessarily an easy track to drive, as Francisco mentioned, with the lack of grip, but also with the lack of banking. A lot of drama that can come out from this race, a lot of cautions, and we may find ourselves with a brand new winner.
And it's good to be up here this evening, and this is a very flat racetrack and very hard to drive too, as Francisco mentioned, the lack of grip here because there's no banking to catch your fall when you slide off the corners. It is one of those that's going to be a challenge as we see if we could have a new winner tonight. 150 laps at New Hampshire as we come into round 8 of the points-paying races. Go to Charlotte next week, Atlanta, a couple mile and a halves after this before we head to the short track of Martinsville. So we get 2 rounds away from the halfway point in the regular season as we close in at that playoff race in North Wilkesboro in April. The season's beginning to take shape with the points and everybody who's winning, so it's going to be exciting to see how it continues.
You are right. We're starting to see the favorites of this series, those drivers who are kind of on a slump right now, trying to turn their course around in this regular season. But as we move forward, we're only about 2 or so races until we get to the direct middle of that regular season campaign. So the time is slowly running out, not to be pressured if you're those guys beneath the cut line in the top 16 right now, but for the most part, you do got to start thinking about how you weave your way through this schedule if you want a 4-wide championship at season's end. That's still a long way from now when we talk about that later in the season, but let's take a look in the rearview mirror, get a look at what happened several weeks ago, about a week ago, when we had our last race of the season at Chicagoland. And Francisco, this will go down as one of the best races that we have seen for mano-a-mano racing between 2 drivers. It started with Steven Maggio, the rookie, taking the pole up front. He dominated the race, but then there was the fight from Brandon Hawken, and it all started with a bit of strategy after our first caution of the race.
Yeah, this race was an excellent example of a lot of green flag racing, a lot of clean racing, but also just a lot of different people that were able to challenge. And ultimately, it came down to Steven Maggio and Brandon Hawkins deciding it. They were definitely the 2 fastest cars in this race, and green flag pit stops. The 98 actually jumped the 51, and as they were trying to save that little bit of fuel, Maggio was able to get back in front, and it was all about controlling that lead from there to the checkered flag.
Maggio was able to get to the inside on the green flag run, but Hawkins stayed with him. We anticipated that Maggio would pull away. Hawkins said, I'm going to stay right here for the taking. They basically almost went side by side for 20-ish laps. They were all over the place trying to find the grip, but it was out of turn 4 where Maggio sealed the deal for good. His second career win comes at this mile-and-a-half circuit in Joliet, Illinois. He's the only rookie so far to have more than 1 win. The only other rookie to take a W, Kyle Tursak. That was back at Bristol Motor Speedway earlier this season. And as we step into the playoffs, we start talking, Keelan, about the point standings itself. Not right now are we looking at the win in your in system, but we're looking at the overall point standings. And when you look at this list, you see a ton of heavy-hitting drivers, a healthy mix between the rookies that have stood out this season and those that have been in this series for a little while. But the biggest note, Ethan Fonseca Moreno jumping 5 standing spot from his third place finish last week at Chicagoland. That was a big time deal for him.
Yeah, it was huge for him. As we see these top 10 in points, a lot of guys who we expect to be here mixed in with a couple rookies. Jaden Porter continues to lead the way, 20 points over Kyle Benson. Last year's champion, Ethan Fonseca Moreno back there, Adam Alshire in the top 5. A lot of guys we have seen, but only 2 winners in this top 10 so far, Kenneth. So far what we've seen, the winners have not been able to keep the consistency up this season so far.
We've seen former champions struggle, lots of the new drivers succeed, like Maggio there, just sneaks into the top 10. Everyone, though, still trying to chase Jaden Porter, who has been outright the most consistent driver of the 4-wide season thus far. We talk about Moreno, his struggles since his Season 6 championship. He's been dealing with the ups and downs, but is slowly starting to get his footing. Here are his last 3 races in the 4-wide season up until now. Here's Moreno holding on to third over Juan Escamilla, and for both of these guys, but for Moreno, his best finish was a 7th in the opening race of the season at Daytona.
Ethan rolling the bottom, drifts up a little bit. Murray comes down, spins, gets the 91 in it. There's the 14. It was hard to hit.
Well, I don't think I sent it into the corner that deep. I mean, it was coming off the corner, so I was down there at the exit of the corner, but, you know, you can't just chop somebody.
Looking on board with Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who's eyeing down the top 2. And Ethan Fonseca Moreno, his best finish this season. He's got third. And while Ethan is not in this race tonight from New Hampshire, we just got word of that, Francisco, still, the consistency is slowly starting to piece together. It looked like after race 1 where he got a top 10, you know, we were seeing what would the strategy be like afterwards, but he just could not find his way. Lots of bad luck along the way. But his best career finish of the season, third place at Chicagoland, that definitely says something for Ethan's chances at just slowly getting back into the rhythm as the defending champion.
Yeah, he's not had the same amount of speed and luck as he did in Season 6, and it has been showing all of this point. But at Watkins Glen, he had that top 5 run, and it was starting to turn around. At Richmond, while we were having those green flag runs, he was working his way up through the top 10, almost had a top 5 spot. But ultimately, all those cautions and getting involved in some incidents with Tyler Murray derailed the finish for him. But he overcame a Neil Will start to be able to capture that P3 finish at Chicagoland, which you mentioned is his best finish of the season. So clearly, he has some positive momentum going for him. He's not here at New Hampshire tonight, but we hope to see him out the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and clearly 1.5 miles have been his strong suit, so we'll have to see if he's able to keep that momentum going at a track that he has seen success at. He was faster last season with the Xfinity car, got involved in an incident which saw him not be able to finish, but certainly carried some speed there, which, like I said, is the track we hope to see him at again.
You know, that's good news, though, when you start to slowly build pace, Keelan Belsha. The fact that, you know, as a driver who struggles with the car itself, it gets very frustrating. You feel like you're just smacking against a brick wall over and over again when you're trying to get the pace, but you just can't extract it out of the race car. But when you start to find decent finishes along the way, it gives you a pretty good mental boost as a driver, giving yourself that little more confidence that I can go out and run these races, I can be clean, and I can finish well, which is what Moreno did last week.
It is a huge confidence boost, Kenneth, because you're down in the dumps when you're not finishing well, when you're getting involved in incidents, but when you can string together 2 top 5s in the last 3 races like he has, it is a huge confidence boost. So next time he hits the track, he's going to carry that momentum as our defending champion and as a guy who has put together some good runs and up there 4th in points right now. He's having a good season for himself so far, not as good as he's expected, but he'll be back in victory lane sooner than later, I'm sure.
We'll just have to see when that time is, though. Here in New Hampshire, we've yet to see him run, but he's not going to run tonight anyway, so it looks like we'll be waiting until Charlotte Motor Speedway, to which we can see if he grabs his first win of the season. From another former champion, we'll go to another, Lawson Peel, who has struggled quite a bit. And in last week, it really did not go well for him at Chicagoland Speedway. Francisco, in the attempt to go 3 wide with Kevin D'Elia and J.J. Hill, got all out of shape. But it started with this pit stop that put him back there in the first place.
An alternate strategy to try and see if he can make the one stop very easily, put him in the back, and unfortunately on the front straightaway had a big run on J.J. Hill, and Kevin D'Elia had nowhere to go with it, make some slight contact, and that's basically what derailed his race from there. He had, I believe, some suspension damage, went multiple laps down in that one, and right there you see just had a huge run and just kind of had too much speed arriving to those 2, and creates this whole incident for himself. You see the contact that resulted in that suspension damage, and that was not the race Lawson Peel was hoping for, but that's really been the story of Lawson Peel's season, hasn't it been, Kenneth? He's had a lot of fast runs. He got that win at Las Vegas, but when that hasn't happening, he's been getting involved in these incidents, having some very poor finishes, and you can see that in the point standings. Normally, Lawson Peel is someone you would expect to be up there with Jaden Porter and Kyle Benson, but he's down there tied for 5th place with Adam Alistair at the moment, which is really good because, as I mentioned, he's been doing really well, but he also has just struggled with that consistency. Tonight we'll see if it's more of the Lawson Peel that we know, that he's able to win races and be contentious, or if the bad luck strikes again, because that's just been the way the 12-car season has been.
Well, the last time we were here in New Hampshire, Lawson Peel found himself in several incidents, just could not escape the mayhem, and so after Chicagoland, you could think possible problems for the former champion of this series. Lots of things we can consider down the line. But Keelan, it's our first trip to this track in a bit over a season. What is it like to race New Hampshire, and what is this track all about?
Well, New Hampshire Motor Speedway up here in Loudon, New Hampshire, the closest track to Canada, I do believe. It opened in 1990, just a little bit over a mile, and there is no banking here for the most part. It goes up a little bit the higher up you get in the corners, but there's no speed over there for the most part. This is a very flat racetrack, and it's going to be very slippy and slidey off the corners, which is something that you showed us when you took that track lap today in a KBueno on-track car.
Yeah, Francisco didn't do the lap. I did the lap myself, and I'm probably going to be way slower, which I was. But here it was, off of turn 4, you go into the straightaway. This track is very rough. You got to keep yourself along that first seam. You'll see drivers go all the way down to the apron. That's where you can find a lot of grip from this track that has 2 to 7 degrees of banking. Try to be patient on the throttle at the exit of turn 2. Once you start seeing that darkened asphalt near turn 3, that's when you hop on the brakes. Drivers will be in 4th gear, but you may see some elect to shift down to 3rd. You don't use 5th here at New Hampshire with this next-gen car, and that's a proper lap here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I definitely wasn't fast, Francisco, and I definitely say that you were faster, or you probably would be way faster than me on the racetrack, but I hope I did it right.
You did it right, yeah. That was definitely the ideal line, man. I think just because of the track conditions and also just how difficult the car is around this racetrack, there's going to be a lot of guys that struggle to make it a lap or consistently put down laps. So, I mean, I think you did a good job, Kenneth. You got to give yourself some credit.
I try my best. I personally do like this track, racing on iRacing. A lot of guys don't, but I've found the quirks pretty fascinating when you start to get it right. But my line isn't going to be the only line, Keelan Belsha. It is going to be one of maybe 4 or 5 different lines that you can run here, because watching the drivers in practice, you see everybody across the board either going under that yellow line in the apron all the way to that yellow line at the bottom in that lane that I was in, like we were talking about, and some drivers going a little higher, trying to arc their car off the corner. So if there's one thing that's for certain, is that there's no certain proper line here at New Hampshire. You've got to work with what you've got, and drivers will be experimenting with that all night long.
That'll be something that we mention later in the day in the keys to the race when we're pacing the field around here. But like you said, there is speed everywhere on this racetrack. You can be down there on the apron, and you could be just as fast through the corners as you could 3 lanes up. So there's a lot of room to move around on the racetrack, but when you get side by side, that room is compromised and compressed pretty quickly as you go down into the corner. So it's a very tough racetrack, and put that together with how slick this race car and snappy this race car is going to be coming off the corners, like 2 and 4. I think we're going to possibly have a chaotic race tonight, Kenneth. We're just going to have to wait and see.
We probably will have a chaotic race, and that's something that would had to happen last season. We had that go down with AJ Green, who was the defending winner here. This was in the mid-portion of the race. Got loose in turns 3 and 4 off of Austin Reedy, and he was on his roof at one point in the race. But Francisco, mind you, we had the faster pairs back then. AJ was able to put himself in the right place at the right time to win that race. It's one of his last career wins in the series, if it's not Darlington, which technically is his last career win, but probably some good news for AJ Green, who's been fast in practice, although he's been using a bit of exploits to get the fast lap.
Yeah, I would say shades of Ross Chastain and Christopher Bell have put him up in the timesheets if you looking at the practice times. But AJ Green, successful here whenever we've been here with these next-gen cars, and had a flip and win, if you will, when we were last here, in which he captured that race win. So we'll see if AJ Green, I don't think the flip and win is in store without the faster pair, but certainly we'll see if he's able to end that 44 race winless streak for himself and capture his first win of Season 7 here tonight.
And for Stonks Motorsports, I mean, we were talking about it before going live. Overall, they've got a pretty hefty winless streak going for them. AJ with that 44 race winless streak. Colin Forrester sits at about 35 race winless streak. And his last win came at Homestead Miami Speedway, the finale of Season 5. But both of them winless in Season 6. Could New Hampshire be that possible turnaround? We're about 10 minutes away from the drop of the green flag here in the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from the virtual
Racing
New Hampshire
isn't
Motor
easy.
Speedway. We'll be right back with coverage of the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show and more for race number 8 of the campaign.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
because Dirt Racing 24 is available now.
In the path to gold, we've seen it all already. From returning drivers dominating, Hawken the winner from Watkins Glen, to a new face taking the field by storm. Steven Maggio, for the second time this season, is a 4-wide TJ's Team Series winner. But as the field takes on New Hampshire for the first time in over a season, who can make magic of their own and add their name to the postseason list? The 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series from New Hampshire Motor Speedway starts now.
That's my bonus for my quota. Boy, don't nobody. I just get a check in the jail with the set. All we do is rap. Ain't worried about next. I'm just making plays, Broadway in the flesh. On us. This right here in the corner.
The field presses forward with 2 races to go until the halfway mark of the regular season, to a venue on the cusp of rejuvenation that can bring a magic moment to anyone looking for a playoff spot. Live from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to coverage of race number 8 in the Season 7 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series. And we are elated, as always, to have you join us on the coverage tonight, where alongside Francisco Bacalhau and Keelan Belcha in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, no grip, a tough-to-drive track. That's what the drivers and you have been noting in the several minutes of practice prior to this green flag. And as we've seen the last 2 races be decided, frankly, by the last several laps and by drivers that have now captured 2 wins on the calendar year, could we potentially see a brand new winner take center stage?
Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity for a brand new winner here this evening, and what that could mean is that they could shake up the playoffs even more depending on who it is. We have several guys in the top 10 that have not won a race so far, which if they get to victory lane, it's just another spot that they get taken up. But if somebody, let's say lower than 15 points goes to victory lane, that's really going to throw a wrench into the current playoff standings. But if you get a repeat winner, it's just going to add on to what their fantastic season has been. And so far, our only repeat winners are Brandon Hawken and Steven Maggio. They went head-to-head last week. We'll see if tonight is more of the same.
And Keelan, New Hampshire returns to the series schedule after about a season off. And in Season 6, nobody got to saw the track because the admin said we're not going to run it. But this time around, they're trying it once more with the next-gen cars. But it's been really tough to drive for everyone involved. And we can say that probably come race time.
Yeah, this is going to be a very tough race for everybody involved. I mean, this setup, this car, it's just so snappy, and when you come to a flat racetrack like this where the banking can't catch your fall, it's going to be something that we're going to have to monitor all evening long. People are going to try to keep their wits about them on every corner of the racetrack as we take a look at this Season 7 schedule. 2 races away from halfway in the regular season as we close in on those playoffs. Got Charlotte next week and a break after that at Atlanta. A week break, and then we go to Atlanta. But all the focus right now, it's on New Hampshire.
Yeah, this is heading into Thanksgiving break, late November, and at this point in the schedule, we will have a lot of off weeks for the holiday season, whether it be Thanksgiving, Christmas break, or New Year. So if there's anything that the drivers are thinking about right now is to lock in, get a playoff spot early, because when that rhythm gets disrupted a little bit, when you're not racing every single week, things will get mentally tough, and you can find some drivers slipping off quite a bit. We've already seen some struggles by a lot of heavy-hitting drivers in the field, whether they be former champions or former winners of the series. The rookies have taken over like they have over the last several seasons in the calendar. So we'll just see how it all shapes out when we get down to it tonight from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, which is a really tough track to drive. This track clocks in at a bit over a mile. This one opened back in 1990 in the Northeast, one of the most northern tracks in the United States on the schedule. This track is at 1.7 kilometers, and the banking is what we will be talking about all night long when it comes down to choosing your line. 2 to 7 degrees in the banking in turns 1 through 4. It is one of the flattest tracks that we're encountering all season long if it's not named Martinsville Speedway. So there is something to be said about how you can maneuver your car and how the tire wear will work out. That'll mean a lot with these cars that in this short track package do not have a lot of downforce. Well, let's take you trackside and bring you tonight's starting grid, sponsored by Dropping the Hammer, on our 8th race of this 2024-25 4 Wide Racing TJ's Team Series season, where Brandon Hawken, the 2-time winner, had a win escape from him last week at Chicagoland, wants to get number 3 here in 2024. He clocks in at 30.220, and on his outside, the second fastest man and one of the most dominant drivers in series history, Lawson Peel, locks out the second place on the front row. Those two will be the first to see the green flag tonight. Jaden Porter drives the number 28. He'll be in 3rd place at the drop of the green. Eric Schaefer, we know him as one of the short track aces of the series. Great qualifying effort for the Virginia native, who starts in position number 4. Juan Escamilla tries to continue a consistent rookie campaign. He starts in 5th. Curtis Kelly, the Canadian, on his outside. He'll be in position number 6. Back in row 4, you'll find Murray Reedy Motorsports' Kyle Benson from 7th. Scott Healy with one of his best qualifying efforts of the season. He'll roll off from position number 8. And rounding out your top 10, Francisco, it is Chicagoland winner Stephen Maggio, looking to go back-to-back in the series from 9th, and AJ Green, defending winner from New Hampshire, in P10.
Brandon Banks, who's had a slow start to the season, is rolling off in P11 with Craig Lautenslugger alongside him in P12. Nicholas Bauman, who had a strong run going for him last week, will start from 13th with rookie Dusty Applin alongside him in the 14th spot. Trevor Haley in the 15th position with Lance Hill, who's making his first appearance in over a month, will be starting from the end of line, serving that penalty from that retaliation effort at Auto Club. Mikey Neal in the 17th spot, and his number 88 with Adam Allenfire in the 18th position, and rounding out your top 20, the 97 of Cody Kinsey and the 8 of Steven Stempian, repping that Martin Truex Jr. finale throwback.
Back in the 21st position is league owner Tyler Murray with Craig Rowe to the outside of him in 22nd. Craig Parks in 23rd with Michael Newbraw outside of him in the 24th position. 25th for Ryan Pandiccio. Kevin D'Elia in the 53 machine in 26th. 27th rolling off the grid is Timothy Cook in the 19 with Christopher Bishop for Murray Reedy Motorsports in 28th. 29th, Daniel Moore alongside another Murray Reedy Motorsports driver in Austin Reedy in 30th. Back behind them, it's Colin Forster, who was the last man to lay down a lap in qualifying, and Jesse Prees in the 0 car. Tony Kivett and CJ Munier back there in row number 17 as Brandon Gillis rounds out the field from 35th.
That'll bring us our full field here from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Why don't we get a moment to talk with our KBRN in-race reporter. That is the driver of the number 8 and the hometown driver here from New Hampshire. That is Steven Stempian, who rolls off pretty far back in this field, but still looking for a great race. Steven, you got us in the booth?
I do, Kenneth.
All right, Steven, well, this is your home track. You've got a very special paint scheme to go with it. What are your overall thoughts as you've taken laps in practice and get ready for this green flag?
I feel pretty good until I screwed up qualifying. But we're going to rebound. It's a long race. We'll just pick everybody off one by one and see if we can get back up there in the mix. But looking forward to it. Good track of mine. Hopefully bring some hometown magic with this Mon Truex scheme. Last time I was here at this track, Truex won, so I had to bring out a Truex scheme.
Seems fitting that Truex retires over the last weekend. You're honoring that scheme that he's throwing back to when he used to run with the DEI team that ran Chevrolet. Steven, a lot of talk about the lack of grip here at New Hampshire and what that's going to do over the course of the run. What have you noticed there, and what do you see going down behind the wheel of the race car, and how hard you may have to fight it tonight?
It's just patience. Patience on throttle, especially on corner exit. You know, these restarts are going to be hairy too, because you really got to kind of diving into the seam, kind of in the middle lane to get a good run off. And you know, if you don't get that middle seam, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a little slippery. But you know, I think as long as everybody's patient, we should see a good race. But I don't know. I think it's going to be slippery. But I think as the race progresses, it's going to tighten up a little bit. So.
We'll take note of it over the course of the night. Steven, hopefully we'll get to talk to you over the course of the race. Best of luck at the green flag.
I appreciate it, buddy.
That is Steven Stempian, driver of the number 8. He'll be joining us all night long. Presumably during our caution laps, we may have a ton of those over the course of this race. New Hampshire has been known to be quite treacherous. Again, the last time we visited it was back in Season 5, and like we've noted, this car and this track are very different from the last time we encountered it. AJ Green is the defending winner, but you've got two of the greatest four-wide drivers on the front row. Brandon Hawken in the 98, Lawson Peel in the 12. The Chevrolets up front will take us to the green flag for the 8th time this season from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Let's get it going from Loudon.
Oh, and around goes the 51, and Adam Alisher is going to spin further back. They both saved it.
It looks like a car is sideways. Caution flag does wave, though. CJ Munier seems to be the main car involved, but we saw several guys coming out of shape by the time they were entering 3 and 4 for the very first time. And with that, on lap number 1, caution flag is out for just the very first time, with a ton of guys in the back getting involved in a pretty sizable accident that doesn't harm many, but Keelan Belsha does slow down the pace of this race quite a bit.
And this is going to be something that we're going to be seeing all evening long. A lot of these yellows are from getting loose under braking, breaking sideways, and it started way up here. We talked about it with Stephen Maggio in the 51. He's the one who gets sideways. Looked like Alisher got tagged by Steven Stempian in the 8 machine up there. So a lot of treachery here in 3 and 4 on the opening lap of the race. See if we can catch what happened to CJ Munier back there. There's Tony Kivett in the 76. That's an onboard look with Maggio and how he got sideways. Munier.
Alisher as well.
I don't think anything happened to Munier there. It's really all the Alisher incident when he got tagged by Stempian there. iRacing thought it was enough to throw a yellow, Kenneth.
Just looked like enough drivers got a little bit too sideways, and it isn't a full spin, Francisco, for literally anyone involved in this crash, but with iRacing race control, if they see a car yawed out at least more than 45 degrees, they are going to cause the caution. And with Alisher and Maggio both going for the synchronized slide, if you will, via contact or just getting loose, that's exactly what brings out the yellow flag.
I feel like it depends. iRacing's pretty inconsistent with that itself in its own database. We've seen cars get more sideways than that, and no cautions get called. But here we had two that were kind of sideways, and it got called. So you see right there, there's Maggio getting sideways. Great save, and then right there, Alisher gets tapped and then gets hit there by Stempian, and I think that contact is what brings out the caution.
It's tough for Stempian there, who was in the middle of that, and by the time someone does get sideways on the higher end of the banking, Keelan, it's really tough to get out of it. But as the field gets back to double file action, we're going to be ready for the restart at around lap 5 of 150. Let's go over your Keelan's keys to the race from Lobsterland.
And a lot of the yellows today, Kenneth, are going to be caused by cars getting sideways and guys not being patient on the throttle. That's the first key. You got to be really patient on the throttle because it is going to shoot you around if you're not. And don't be scared to use different lines. If we get enough green flag action here today, you could see guys maybe starting a race on the apron or up there in the middle of the corner, and they could be moving around. Don't be scared because there is speed all over, and track position is going to matter. I feel like qualifying is huge here because we saw it at Richmond in a caution-filled race. Track position mattered for Brandon Hawken, and he kept it up front. And maybe if we get a long enough run, you might be able to move that brake bias back a little bit as the tires wear. It's all going to be how long we can keep this race green.
We'll see how it goes, though. Green flag in the air for just the second time tonight from New Hampshire. A bit of a bump from Porter to Hawkins, sends the 98 Chevrolet up front by at least a car length in the trace to turn 1. The fight for second, Peel and Porter trying to go at it with Escamilla in the background, sitting in 4th place. Everyone fans out to the low-end degree banking here in New Hampshire in 1 and 2, but it's all Brandon Hawken who leads this one to the back straightaway. Can this be a cleaner trip through the second half of the circuit?
It was almost a moment there in the back for Timothy Cook, but fortunately for him, he was able to save it. He lost like 15 positions there, but looks like we're going to complete our first proper green flag lap here.
And it's Hawken in command, Peel settling back in second. This is the point of the race where everyone goes basically single file, trying to get their bearings together. We noted that Lance Hill is making his first start this season since Auto Club. Remember all the way back then when he dumped Eric Schaefer under yellow after some beef happened there? Well, it seems as though he's finally back in the series, and he does have to serve that drive-through penalty, so car number 1 is in. Caution flag is out, though, for the second time tonight as the one car is on pit road, and Lounslogger, the Ford Mustang, has some left front damage. Yellow is out with another incident.
Sizable crash on the back straightaway, Kenneth. It looks like the 16 of Applin. Baines Bauman also got sideways. Lounslogger really didn't have anywhere to go. And there was about 3 or 4 more cars that got involved after that.
So here's Lounslogger in the fight with Maggio off turn 2. Applin gets loose. So does Lounslogger, and Nicholas Bauman gets out of shape. All 3 of them head to the grass. Applin and Lounslogger catch a piece of the inside guardrail. I think Craig Rowe, the rookie, also got a piece of that at the exit of turn 2. So the treachery with the rear tires continues, and it catches Lounslogger and plenty others out of shape. Here's the onboard look from Lounslogger.
Everybody did about the same thing there, Kenneth, and it's the patience on the throttle is going to get you here off of 2. If you want to keep that car from not braking sideways, you want to get as much of the speed as you can, but getting on this throttle off these corners, it is so treacherous. As we see Craig Rowe back here in the 24, looked like he did just about the same thing. He might have got away with a little less damage, though, just a little slap to defense. Kevin D'Elia, too.
Oh boy.
Applin almost backed into him.
Well,
that could have been a lot. That could have been a lot worse than it was, but I mean, what is that, 5 cars that do pretty much the same thing off the corner right there as we get an onboard look with the Leo on the right side there.
Oh my.
Wow.
Oh.
That was close. You couldn't fit a piece of paper between those 2 Chevrolets as Applin was backing up. D'Elia was just trying to get out of the grass, and it creates danger for both of them. A hard-skipping moment, but luckily both of them are able to continue without that much damage. And as the field gets back under the iRacing official pace car, Brandon Hawken will continue to lead. But Francisco, that was something that you did mention before going green. We are probably going to expect a lot of yellows, and drivers were thinking that too. This track created a ton of caution flags and periods throughout the Season 5 race. It is trending the exact same way, only 8 laps in.
And not just the Season 5 race, Season 4 also had its fair share of caution flags in that particular event. You have to go all the way back to Seasons 2 and 3 when we covered the series where there was slightly less cautions with the Gen 6 race cars here, which just were that little bit planted, even though it had the low downforce package at this racetrack. So something about these cars and this racetrack, at least in its current form, definitely not agreeing with the handleability, the comfort ability of these drivers, and we've already seen both cautions have been a result from drivers getting loose. We had one in 3 and 4, we had one in turn 2, but I certainly expect what we just saw in turn 2 to be really the story of the evening.
And part of what is creating the looseness factor with these cars on this track is the NASCAR Next Gen short track package. It was something that NASCAR implemented quite recently in real life, and it was reflected as such in the sim. It's used on most of the short tracks that are at least a little over a mile or under that, and all the road courses that are on the schedule. And you can't quite see it now from Peel's perspective, but if we look back at Jaden Porter, you might be able to see it. Those 2 strakes there at the bottom of the race car, at most tracks, you would see a full-on diffuser that extends to the rear end clip of the race car. But on this short track package, Keelan, you not only have a shorter rear spoiler to give you less downforce at the top end, you've got those only 2 strakes at the bottom end of the floor to give you no downforce on the bottom end.
And if you go back to the old Gen 6 package where they had the high horsepower, low downforce with the small spoilers, it's kind of similar to that. The horsepower isn't up, but the grip is not there because you have no downforce under the race car. It's air pushes under there, so when you slide off these corners sideways, the air goes under that race car. Diffuser's not necessarily blocking it back there, and the spoiler back there, no air deflected off back there, so it really puts a lot of pressure on that rear end of the race car and makes it really slippy when you come off these corners. So just going to be something that these guys have to watch all day, and if we want to get some green flag racing, like I'm sure everybody wants to do, people are going to have to take note of that.
Well, let's try it again. Lap 11 of 150. Green flag waves back in the air, and it's another solid jump for the Canadian Brandon Hawken. He'll chase to turn 1. It's better side-by-side for second place. A better run for Porter there on the inside of the racetrack. They'll straddle that first seam at the exit of the corner, but it is all Brandon Hawken up front. Everyone trying to fight the race car off the corner. No problems for now. And Francisco Bacallao, we stay green back to turn 3.
Importantly, for now, we'll have to let these tires really get warmed up. They haven't gotten the opportunity to warm them up and see. Oh, and we do have a spin. Big crash off of turn 4. The 88 of Mikey Neal gets on his side. Kevin D'Elia also involved there as well. Multiple cars around. Trevor Haley among them. And the 64 of Scott Healy, Season 2 champ. And there's Eric Schaefer.
Eric Schaefer, Trevor Haley, Lance Hill, Austin Reedy, Brandon Gillis among the heavy list of cars that found damage. And there's Haley all the way at the background there, just trying to get his Ford Mustang up and underway, but that car is severely torn up. And it was a big stack up there that started with Schaefer there in the middle of 3 and 4 Keelan.
And it all starts back here. Eric Schaefer in the 28 of Porter there, I believe, making contact, and everybody just gets involved in this one. This is just a huge pile up, so I mean, this is gonna maybe take some cars out of the race. I don't know, these things are usually tanks, but we'll see how it goes as we ride along with Trevor Haley back here, see his view of things in that Worth machine.
You know, it looks like there was a checkup just in front of Schaefer. I want to say the 28 of Porter was tight going into the corner, split up into the 41 of Escamilla, and that's what forced Schaefer to have to check up, and then he gets hit by, I think, Benson and AJ Green, and that's what sent him spinning.
And a huge, hellacious hit by Mikey Neal goes nose first into the outside wall, and that car gets up on its side. Almost reminiscent, Keelan, to the time that AJ Green flipped in the Season 5 race here. Give or take, that was a single car spin that got him out of shape, but this one, a little more collected, a little more chaotic in the sense that there are way more drivers involved in that, and there is a laundry list of cars on pit road. There's Neal, all battered up, huge time suspension damage. Craig Lautenslager is in, Trevor Haley, Adam Alishire, and our KBRN in-race reporter, Steven Stempian. His Bass Pro Shops machine has seen it all over the course of the night and still yet to escape any of the incidents so far.
Unfortunately for Mikey Neal and his little shunt he did there, we don't have faster pairs like we did 2 seasons ago, so maybe he would have had that AJ Green good luck if he could just go in there and get a brand new race car, but it's not going to happen this evening, and damage like that's going to be pretty detrimental. But I'm pretty sure I saw him crab walking off pit road, so I'm not sure how much longer he can go like that.
Oh, he pulled it off.
He pulled it off. I mean, he is
He tried.
Destroyed. I applaud the effort.
I mean, that's trying to keep your car on the racetrack, give or take, but Mikey Neal is the first proper DNF of this race. He puts his Chevrolet behind the pit wall. As for everyone else, they've got most of their damage repaired. Steven Stempian has fallen a lap down to the leaders. He's still on pit road trying to get his car fixed. But for the most part, everyone else gets their Chevrolets and cars dialed in. They are back on the racetrack, and we will be set for this restart given to us at lap 15 of 150. Still no change from the front row. Hawken and Peel continue to remain up front. We saw Jaden Porter fall a bit back there. That checkup is sort of what caused Eric Schaefer to go around to bring us that caution flag. Green flag raises lap 15, and Lawson Peel draws even with Hawken into turn 1.
Oh, and some 3 wide there. It looked like Escamilla and Benson on the bottom end of that towards the flat end of the racetrack trying to make a move on Curtis Kelly. His Peel almost gets into the outside wall there off of turn 2. So far, so good at the front of the field, and even at the back end of the field with all those damaged race cars. On our way to turn 3, we'll see if everybody's able to get their way through clean this time.
Lawson in 3 and 4 using the same line he utilized, Keelan, in practice, trying to get that Chevrolet underneath the yellow line and on the apron. It's a place where you can find a bit of grip and get the shortest end of the way on the racetrack through. You can put less throttle off the corner, but it's a strategy that's known to work, especially from the Coke Series drivers that ran this track not that long ago. But no dice for Peel, still about half a second back of the race leader, and finally the field settles in for a first proper green flag lap and our first side-by-side action for P5, Escamilla and AJ Green.
something we're going to be talking about all evening, Kenneth. There is speed everywhere on this racetrack as we ride along with AJ Green with our Charlie Byer photography onboard camera. He sits back in 6th right now in between Escamilla, who gets sideways, and he might have went up into the fence there. Don't know if he saved it, didn't get a good look. Green will get around him and take that position away, but a scary moment for Escamilla. Car looks clean. I think he got away without major damage, but he was almost all the way sideways right there, Kenneth.
It looked like he almost had the tap, but instead just got loose and
Oh, he
pancaked
did
it to
hit
the
the
outside wall. So he did find some damage, Francisco, but that is a dodged bullet. He could have been much worse, and he could have caught some other cars with him.
That's definitely going to hurt his car, though. I mean, yes, he hit it flat, but there was probably some suspension damage in some sense. Look how far he's fallen off the field. It looks like Maggio had another incident on his own right, has lost a couple of positions. So even though we've gotten the tires warmed up now, there's still drivers having trouble. I was able to find an incident here with Michael Newbro on 3 and 4 just a handful of laps ago. He had a near moment off of turn 4. Craig Parks much did.
And that tennis ball colored Chevrolet gets out of shape on the inside of Escamilla. Was just about to note him entering the top 15, but now he falls on the outskirts nearly of the top 20 underneath Kevin D'Elia here and Craig Rowe, who was involved in one of the cautions. Kevin D'Elia goes sideways and somehow he saves the car, and Christopher Bishop follows suit. Both drivers finding trouble, and we are nearly getting to another yellow flag here in New Hampshire. It is just not flying yet.
Cody Kinsey had a trouble off of turn 2 contact with Bishop. They both went hard into the outside wall.
They both found their way to the outside barrier, and that's what gives the damage to both the 97 and the Surge Ford Mustang Dark Horse of Bishop. Both of them escape, but again, similar to Escamilla's incident, it will severely hamper them for the rest of the race. Meanwhile, Brandon Hawken has pulled his lead away to about 1.2 seconds over Lawson Peel. Kyle Benson has settled nicely in 3rd. That's a driver, Keelan Belsha, who finished on the podium the last time we were here at the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Gave us the pedo cam last week at Chicagoland. That was a boatload of fun to watch. I don't know why he didn't give us one this time around, but the Hey Dude Ford Mustang runs solidly in 3rd as we speak.
Yeah, when I was researching New Hampshire in this league in the past to see who the guys would be to watch, I had Kyle Benson up there, and he kept telling me that he was not going to run well this evening. Well, so far, he's sitting that Hey Dude machine in the 3rd position for Murray Reedy Motorsports. He sits 2nd in points coming into today, so he's had a nice little season to his credit, just about 20 points behind Jaden Porter, who is a position behind him. As we see back here, Curtis Kelly and Colin Forster side by side for this position into 1 and 2. Something tells me we haven't seen the last of these cars just breaking loose, though, Kenneth. I mean, we have seen almost everybody do it so far.
Well, you know, you have a tire cycle, Francisco, to where you're on cold tires, you have no grip. But then you have a bit of grip when the tires warm up. But then the tire continues to have no grip when you wear it down as you run more green flag laps. So you're right, Keelan. I don't think we're going to see the end of drivers being sideways and chasing the race car all over the place. It's already taken some out, has given some the chance to come down pit road, and many of them already a lap down. Bishop 2 laps down in 31st. Cody Kinsey 3 laps down in 32nd. And Francisco, the in-race reporter curse continues. Steven Stempian has taken his Chevrolet out of tonight. He's done from New Hampshire tonight.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for him. I mean, most of the time we usually pick the drivers. I think he was the first one to really suggest it. So unfortunately, I think he brought that on himself.
On the left side of your screen, battle for the lead, which is non-existent right now. It's over 2 seconds between Brandon Hawken and Lawson Peel, and one of our best battles there in the mid-pack. That is Daniel Moore for not stonks, but still kind of stonks on the inside of Juan Escamilla. That's a battle for 13th.
Escamilla trying to recover from that hard smack to the fence up there on the top side of Daniel Moore right there. He's definitely going to want to get some damage repaired next time he comes down.
Oh, looks like going sideways off turn 2.
There's smoke.
We're going to try to figure out who that was there off of the second corner, but they were faced backwards
Bishop.
to the inside wall. And you're right, Francisco, it is Christopher Bishop.
Let's see here what happened to him. It looks like just got sideways in the middle of 1 and 2, and the caution flag waves. It's Kevin D'Elia spun around in turn 2.
And that's the same place where Bishop found trouble. Car number 53 in peril. Right front damage with the Chevrolet. And Kevin D'Elia brings us the yellow. It appeared Dusty Applin might have also been involved in that. Christopher Bishop had gone for the spin off turn 2 while he was on the bottom of the racetrack, and because that was under the racing line, iRacing would not technically throw that as the yellow flag. But because Kevin D'Elia was on track, that is the caution this time. 26 laps in after our longest green flag run of the night. Here's a look at how it happened to D'Elia and Keelan Belsha. That is a typical loose moment off of turn 2.
I feel like we've seen that incident 5 times already, Kenneth. It just hasn't been as aggressive of an overcorrection as we've seen. But from D'Elia right here as we ride along with the Charlie Byer photography onboard camera. I mean, he's loose that entire corner, Kenneth. I mean, he is... It looks like a sprint car down there going through that corner. His right rear out that whole corner. Almost made it all the way around like that, but unfortunately just broke around and overcorrected into the fence. And that will likely probably spell the end of his day as we see a lot of guys on pit road, starting with our guy who was in second place, Lawson Peel.
It is a split strategy. Brandon Hawken and several others will stay out. Lawson Peel leads the majority of the field in this time. Austin Reedy, Kyle Benson, Jaden Porter among those to follow in pit road. Curtis Kelly also did too. He is that 5th or so car in the back of the line, and that leaves 7 cars, Francisco, that have stayed out. Brandon Hawken included, but then Colin Forrester, AJ Green, the pair of Stonks Motorsports Chevrolets. Then Steven Maggio, who at one point was at the mercy of being put a lap down. He's in 4th. Nicholas Bauman in P5. And Craig Rowe, Brandon Gillis back to 7th. Do you like this call early? It seems as though 27 laps in, these guys are thinking the tires haven't worn down enough to warrant going down pit road.
I'm certainly not against it considering how many cars made their way onto the pit lane. I think the top 6, as they go through the start-finish line, the first 6 cars have stayed out here. So I think it's they didn't lose for the guys at the front that pitted. They certainly didn't lose that many positions, and they now have slightly better tires. Maybe they're going to be more competitive against Brandon Hawken against it, because Hawken just drove his way out to a 2 and a bit second lead in just those 10 laps. And there you see what happened to Bishop there on the right side of the screen, just loose, and as you mentioned, was off the racetrack, and that's why we didn't get a caution.
So he was in the grass there, that little nook that's on the exit of turn 2. That's right around where the wall cuts out. When you get off of pit road, you have to use that merge line that's under the apron. Then there's a blue cone and a blue line, and the wall gets really close to the racing surface. You got to put your car right in the middle of that, and then there is an outward trajectory from the wall where it goes into the infield grass on the back straightaway. That's exactly where Bishop turned around, got sideways, and nestled his Ford Mustang into. And as the race leader Hawken went by, all he could see was the aftermath of smoke that came from the spinning Bishop, and then the caution came out shortly after with Kevin D'Elia. So a red flag blocked, therefore the race leader, who could have found himself in an incident, while Lawson Peel and the entire field who pitted are 7th on back. So our first proper split strategy between those at the front and those in the mid-pack, Keelan.
And we'll see how it all shakes out. We saw this at Richmond, too. We saw a strategy split where Hawken elected to maintain the track position rather than pit with everybody else, and it worked out pretty well for him because he was able to run like 150 laps on fuel. It was kind of insane. So don't think we'll see that this evening. Don't think we'll have that many yellows, but we have split everything up, and there's a little bit of a buffer between Hawken and the guys who just pit. I'm wondering how much different the lap times will be, though, fresh tires compared to about maybe 10, 12 green flag laps up here for Hawken. So coming to the restart, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Well, off the aerial shot, green flag back in the air from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Hawken with the proverbial jump into turn 1. The Stonks Motorsports teammates will battle for second with Steven Maggio there in the background. We'll keep an eye on the Exalta Chevrolet. Lawson Peel is on the inside of 3 wide with Kyle Benson and Craig Rowe off turn 2.
And there you see him working his way down the back straightaway, trying to get around the 14 of Bauman, trying to see if he can move himself back into the top 5 after pitting. Benson trying to follow him through. They'll look to the inside of Bauman off of turn 2, and look at that, side by side for second. The 2 Stonks Motorsports guys that we were covering in the pre-race who haven't won in Season 6, trying to return to victory lane. They're racing each other for the P2 spot.
And both of them did not have the greatest run.
Oh, Forster with a bad exit.
Chicagoland Speedway, Forster bobbles up, and spinning is Kelly on the back straightaway. Yellow flag is out again in the middle of the field. Went the 5-hour energy machine, and it's Curtis Kelly that is in the heart of the accident. Caution flag at lap 31.
Like the story of what has been going on in turn 2 continues. I think the 24 of Craig Rowe gets slightly loose and makes contact with Curtis Kelly, and that's what sends Kelly spinning around. Indeed.
And Rowe was one of those who stayed out on the old tires, so he will pit this time for sure. As it looks like, yeah, they just come together, and Rowe was just deadly sideways, couldn't keep it under him. He bounced off of him and then almost got up into the fence as we saw Murray kind of get involved right there. It has been a season to forget for that 36 car.
We'll keep an eye on Murray here, the league owner, who technically sits above Curtis Kelly right now in the running order, but he was trying to get away from it, had to swerve from Craig Rowe, and in turn catches Lance Hill. So in that sense, in the attempt to avoid, creates the situation where he ultimately gets into it, and Curtis Kelly at the heart of that. Wonderful job by his machine to slow down as he did and kept it away from everyone else. I believe he escaped any other type of contact on the back straightaway, but it was all Craig Rowe just getting loose off of there. And what we usually don't talk about, Francisco, is the crest that hits you off of turn 2. You sort of get up the hill, and then you get on that straightaway. The rear tires can easily kick up from under you, and that's exactly what happens with Rowe here. The car just steps out, and he has nowhere to go but to slide into Kelly, which also he has nowhere to go in that instance either.
Yeah, I feel like not enough people talk about the elevation change this racetrack has. It's not much. It's very subtle, but it's enough to influence these race cars. If you were to look out on the back straightaway just behind the fence, you see a pretty big hill there where the road course runs on the inner and outer portion of this racetrack. And, I mean, they had to dig it out as best as they can, but it's never going to be the exact same elevation as the front stretch. So you kind of rise up a little bit, and boom, you end up with these tire spinning issues, especially with the way turn 2 just kind of jumps out at you. So you get a little bit of an elevation rise, a tight corner exit. It kind of reminds you of, say, turn 2 or turn 4 at Dover.
It does, and a lot of other tracks that are similar to New Hampshire that also feature that bit of a crest. You know, Iowa Speedway is another short track where you come off turn 2 and the track goes up before you sort of get over the crest and go downhill, and the rear tires immediately can lift up from that. Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway, they also have the same feature off of turn 2 where that car can easily get loose off the corner, specifically this next-gen machine. But, you know, we're seeing the same thing happen here at New Hampshire, and Craig Rowe, again, unfortunately involved in that accident with his Chevrolet. Talking about Stonks Motorsports, those are the two drivers sitting second and third, AJ Green and Colin Forster. Their tertiary driver, Lance Hill, spending all night serving the penalty and working his way through the mid-pack and then getting involved in that accident. But for Green and Forrester, who have been more so consistently across the four-wide schedule, Keelan, they've been back and forth, either really great races for both of them or poor races on the other end. And the last time we raced at Chicagoland Speedway, they had a really good start, but they fell off late in the going. Green finished in 20th, Forrester finished in 22nd. So I'm sure even if they understand they cannot catch Brandon Hawken right now, they'd understand that a solid top 3 run, even if they're fighting with each other, is really good.
It is very good because these points matter too. Even though there's a win in your in system, if we keep having guys like Hawkins show up and win, there's not going to be enough wins to distribute for them to just hop over them in points. So the points matter just as much to make these playoffs, but I know these two guys are both hungry for a victory, Kenneth. They both went winless in Season 6. AJ Green has the one of the longer winless droughts in this field. I believe you said pre-race it was about 44 races since he bumped and runned Kyle Benson at Darlington in Season 5, so it's been a while. He's hungry. Forster hasn't won since the Season 5 finale, so those two teammates, they're very hungry.
Green will be on the outside of the front row, waiting for Hawkins to take the green, and the Beef Machine lines up alongside the Sucker Punch Chevrolet, but not until they exit turns 1 and 2 to where Green will be side by side with his teammate Colin Forrester. Hawkins pulls away to at least a car length or two. It's side by side 2 rows deep, and the fresh tire car of Lawson Peel kicks his way into the top 5.
On the inside of Maggio, and AJ Green is sideways in front of Maggio. Maggio sideways as well, gets into him, and there's going to be a big crash here in turn 4.
And that sucks up many. Austin Reedy, Brandon Banks, Tyler Murray, Michael Newbraun, Nicholas Bauman, and several others that are collected in the aftermath. It's one bobble from the second place car that takes everyone for a ride.
And you saw exactly where that started, Kenneth, with AJ Green and the 51, Maggio also getting sideways. You see right here, they both just kind of go in too hot, get the car sideways. Jaden Porter, oh, so lucky there, but not everybody behind. Brandon Banks, Timothy Cook. You see other guys stop, and Tyler Murray gets, I think, hit by Brandon Gillison there, just trying to check up for the wreck. And that just really sends more cars into it than originally had been.
Here's the Charlie Meyer Photography onboard camera with Nicholas Baumann.
It looked like Maggio may have had that saved if he didn't overcorrect too hard. Either could have spun it to the left or to the right, but he got up into the fence. Baumann nowhere to go, and they all just stacked up behind him from mid-pack on back. Another look on the right side of the screen. Green hopping over that seam might have been what kind of upset the rear end of that race car as he was braking at that point, braking, turning left down over that seam. Probably upset the car because I know it does it. Every other racetrack you ever race, those seams are treacherous, and looks like it just got the worst of AJ Green right there. And we were just talking about how they would have been happy, would have been content with the top 3 run in that 48 camp, and they're going to have some work to do climbing back from what it is now, 18th.
Let's see if we can get a word with Nicholas Baumann, who was directly involved in that accident there, to bring us our latest yellow lap 38. Nicholas, you got a copy with us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, Nicholas, obviously a lot to see there from the front windshield. You and several others on pit road now. What did you see there on that latest crash?
Well, saw the 48 get sideways in front of me. Hoped to get checked up, then the 51 got sideways. And just kind of had nowhere to go. Feel like I got hit from the back.
So obviously New Hampshire is pretty treacherous as we've seen it so far. Obviously a chaotic start to this race, but how do you try and rebound here, and what do you keep in mind patience-wise over the course of the race?
Just try to avoid the crashes. And just kind of baby those rear tires a little bit.
Well, Nicholas, we certainly appreciate the time. Tough break that you were involved in the accident, but thankfully you're still going, and best of luck on the next restart.
Yep, thank you.
That is Nicholas Baumann for the Dark Horse Motorsports team. He is one of the several in that camp, Francisco, that's in their rookie season, and it's the first time they tackle New Hampshire Motor Speedway as a team. We talk about how Season 6, changed the game when they added the Xfinity Series cars and added some other tracks. Well, you add some returning tracks from Season 5, and you have an entirely different driver base. So many of these guys seeing this track in this series for the first time and having to get used to it.
Yeah, it's a combination of just things they've never experienced, at least not in this competition. And you consider Nicholas Baumann, who's been on the sim for under a year, and it's definitely something new for him. So obviously had nothing in the cause of this incident, but just at the wrong place at the wrong time for a rookie driver.
So he is only one of several cars that are taken out in that crash. We know that Tyler Murray was in there, Brandon Banks, Scott Healy, and all of those guys at the back of the field coming down pit road for a lot of their damage repair. Meanwhile, Brandon Hawken continues to lead this field. He has yet to give up the lead since the drop of the green flag, but things could change knowing that Lawson Peel is the first car on fresh tires. Colin Forrester, like Brandon, stayed out on one of the last yellows of the race. Peel and Benson that occupy row number 2, they're on the fresh Goodyear Eagles, so there could be a change of pace and a change of the lead for the very first time. Let's get a restart at lap number 41. Still a long way to go from Loudon. Brandon Hawkins set to bring us the green flag once more with Colin Forrester on the outside. The Chevrolets bring the Bro Tie Brigade to turn 1 under pacing and under green. Kyle Benson will try to give the push to Forrester in turn 1.
And he's actually going to put the bumper to Forrester and move him out of the way. Forrester, here big crash.
Forrester hard into the wall. Caution flag out immediately, and the SpongeBob machine is not having FUN. Here in New Hampshire, the car is toast in turn 2.
Definitely not the friend song he was hoping to see here on this restart. Benson, on very early in this race, put the bumper to him, and Forrester with a vicious crash into the outside wall.
Forrester did not want to see this go down after finishing outside the top 20 at Chicagoland last week, where the race did start off pretty well for the Florida driver, but all of a sudden, Colin Forrester finds the fates settled for him in the middle of 1 and 2 as he was fighting for the top spot. Another look at it here on the restart to turn 1. Keelan, what happens here?
He got a heck of a jump and went down into the corner deep there. He was getting a push from Benson going into the corner. I think Benson was just being aggressive there. I don't know if that's really what upset the race car. It looks like it may have already been upset, and then that little bump is just what sent the car over the edge right there. He just got a really good restart. I mean, he was hanging with Hawken going down into turn number 1, but Hawken able to get into the corner so much deeper than whoever's on the outside of him. You see Forster's on board view on the left, Benson on the right. Just minuscule contact right there, but when the car is already kind of upset in the center of this corner, that's going to be enough to spin the race car around. So Benson definitely not trying to do that, but just that very tiny contact is going to put this SpongeBob machine in trouble.
And that is the car done tonight from New Hampshire. As we got to look at it from the right side, it's just that minuscule contact, Francisco, from Benson. Enough of a tap to send the car out of shape. And with this next-gen car, it is tough to save it without overcorrecting. And with Forrester, that's what goes down. The Jacksonville, Florida native is the other casualty added to the list in this race.
It hasn't been a good week for Forrester. He was at the Jaguars game earlier this week where they lost to the Minnesota Vikings, and now here, while on the front row, got sideways, and then Benson finishes him off, and that does him for the end of the race because the engine went caboose there.
And unlike Season 5, no fast repairs to bail you out, so Forrester tonight is done in Loudon. His teammate A.J. Green all the way back in position number 25. All the way back in this field, A.J. Green is, as a result of being a part of that incident, a bit of the left-to-rear damage to his beef machine, and he has to deal with being one of the solo Stonks Motorsports cars that are still out there on the racetrack if it's not his teammate Lance Hill, who has struggled quite a bit, and the one car sits in 11th as it stands. So we'll see if we can get a word with Colin Forster right before we get the drop of the green flag next for the restart. And Colin, you got a copy with us?
I do.
All right, Colin, well, it was all of a sudden everything going for you in turn 1, and then the race soiled. What happened there as you were entering turn 1 with Kyle Benson behind you?
It would appear I got wrecked. Yeah, it looked like he hit me like right as we were starting to get back in the gas. He hit me like in the left rear, which is like the worst spot and the worst point of the corner to hit me, but I'm not mad. It was pretty funny, to be honest. So I'm not super mad. He'll be alright.
You've had a rough past 2 races. We know 22nd last week at Chicagoland. This race taken out. What do you anticipate now to rebound at Charlotte next week?
Oh boy, Charlotte, I don't know. I kind of suck at Charlotte, so probably not much, but we'll figure it out eventually, I guess.
Well, Colin, we appreciate the time. I know it was a tough break to see this car totaled this early, but best of luck with helping your team as you guys push forward to Charlotte next week.
I appreciate it, sir.
That is Colin Forster, their driver of the 99 Chevrolet. He's out of this race early, with only 45 laps in the books and 105 still to go. So your front row is Brandon Hawken, the man still left to come down pit road, and Kyle Benson on the outside of the front row. Lawson Peel and Ryan Pandiccio occupy the second row. Keep an eye on the Massachusetts native of Pandiccio, sophomore 10-year driver in this series, looking to get some headway. Green flag back in the air, Hawken the jump, the switch up high, the chase to turn 1.
38 of Benson, that's going to be the first car on the fresh tires. He got around Peel, so now he's going to try to run down Hawken.
Alishire around off of turn 2.
Spinner, it's Alishire. Yellow flag out again. And there is the Toyota Camry all by himself. A bit of damage on the left front. But nonetheless, the spinning Alishire brings us the quick yellow triggered at lap 46. As we got another look at it, and it was off of turn 2, Francisco, where it all went down.
It was the classic, what we've seen all night, that just gets loose off of turn 2, and that's all she wrote.
And this is, again, Keelan, a time where a driver has crashed from inside the top 6. We've seen the last several cautions be ignited from guys that are running up front, whether it is Colin Forrester or the A.J. Green, the Stephen Maggio, and this time with Adam Alishire.
Just a common theme we've been seeing this evening as he's right behind Pandiccio there. He's in 3rd gear down there, and this track is loose on 4th gear, Kenneth. I don't know how these guys are running it in 3rd gear, but those high RPMs are definitely not helping how much that rear tire is spinning coming off these corners. But I'm not gonna blame anybody for any of this, because I know if I was out there, I'd probably be causing 20 of these yellows. So just one of those things that these guys have yet to learn, as you see the narrow avoidance right there from Craig Parks.
Craig Parks, who barely gets by that incident, and the caution flag waves. Just similar to the last close call that we had there with Kevin D'Elia, Francisco, but it appears everything is okay, and the yellow flag comes out once again. Well, it seems like, again, it's going by that trend, and as we're seeing the yellows fly, you were listening on board with Brandon Hawken, the car is in clutch mode. He's saving as much fuel as he can.
We saw this at Richmond, Francisco.
Could he do it with no pit stops? That would be interesting.
I don't think so. I mean, I said that at Richmond too, and it seemed to happen. Maybe we can talk to him and find out what he's thinking here. Let's see.
All right, Brandon, welcome to the booth. You got a copy with us?
Oh, got a copy?
All right, we got you. Well, Brandon, we're theorizing in the booth right now. Francisco and Keelan are giving the proposition that you may be saving to have no pit stops in this race, but as it's going right now, how has the night been for you?
Oh yeah, it's been pretty good. Yeah, just been chilling for the most part. But for the green flag we've had, it's been a lot of fun. It's a pretty tricky car to drive here. So yeah, I've definitely been on my toes the whole time. I'm sure everybody else has as well. It's definitely caused a bit of chaos, but it's been fun to drive at least. But yeah, I don't think we'll be able to make it without pitting at least once, but we'll see what we can do here.
And on the other end of things, a bit off topic, but this weekend you're going to be racing in the Prodigy 3 Racing League at NOLA Motorsports Park. I know there's a lot of excitement there. What have been your thoughts on racing in real life there in a couple days, and how you're going to parlay that? Maybe a win tonight and go into the real life racing world this weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Yeah, Prodigy Week there in May. We got our first taste of the Radical SR1, and it's gonna be such a fun car to race. And yeah, I'm just super excited. This is like the big opportunity of a lifetime. So yeah, I'm heading out tomorrow, very early in the morning, and then we'll be racing on the weekend. So man, I'm just super excited to race with the Sucker Punch team and all my teammates and everybody else who got drafted. It's gonna be an absolute blast. So I'm just looking forward to that, and we'll see how we make out for the race. I hope to have some good speed. Got a lot of practice in at NOLA over on Assetto Corsa, and it's a really great track. So really looking forward to it, and about to go green, but I wish I could talk more, but it's gonna be awesome. So check out the Racing Prodigy Instagram, Twitter, Facebook channels, and that's about it. Man, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right, well, that's Brandon Hawken. We're going to send him back because he was talking as he was getting the green flag restarted. Lap 51, side by side between Benson and Peel, might be settled off turn 2. Peel is still there with his nose underneath the Ford Mustang, and they'll remain about side by side off the second corner. It's 3 wide further back in the pack, and Brandon Hawken continues to lead back to turn 3.
Who can't say you can't multitask, Kenneth? He was out there having a conversation with us as he was getting going on the restart.
And he's always excited to be up here. I love that kid.
Yeah.
As we see Peel, my goodness, big moment. Huge moment.
He got into Kyle Benson there, washing up out of turn 4. The car did not agree with him as he was getting into the throttle, and Ryan Paglicio, loose in front of him, has to force the Mississippi native to check up even more. And back behind him is his Drinkin' Bros Racing teammate of Craig Parks. What a run by Parks here tonight with Curtis Kelly on the inside. Several drivers, though, amongst the chaos, getting into the top 10, and that also includes rookie Dusty Applin.
A couple of rookies up here in the front end of the field through these strategies and caution flags. And they're having some good runs going for them. They have some fresh tires. They're just going to try and make the best out of it. Let's see if we can see that contact with Lawson Peel and Kyle Benson that put Peel back a couple positions.
So on the right side is the run 2, 3, and 4. Peel utilizing the line similar to practice near the apron on the very inside. And as he's getting off the corner, just no space. They make contact. They check hips, and Peel gets sideways. Thankfully, he's able to save the race car before it all goes haywire. And that's a situation, Keelan, to where you can easily get the car back loose. And after we talked about the issue from Chicagoland where it was a similar situation, bouncing off a race car and getting out of shape, it could have been part 2 right there.
Yeah, the good thing about New Hampshire is you can probably fit 8 cars side by side on these straightaways, so there is a lot of room to get it together when you slide down the racetrack like that. And that time it wasn't necessarily the back end shooting them around, it was just a little door bang action on the straightaway. Still cost them time, but a lot better than looping at 180 and falling all the way back through the field. As we see the 13 of Craig Lautenslager back here with our Charlie Byer photography. Oh, trouble up there in front of him. Can't tell who that was. Looks like they're going to keep it green. As we see the 13 car recovering.
Spinner behind Juan Escamilla, one of those involved. And it looks like several others have spun behind them. There was a spinner. It's Craig Rowe. And that brings out the yellow again, Francisco, lap 55.
Escamilla, a couple laps ago, was into an incident with Kevin Elia that almost brought out a caution, and here he is, a part of another incident. I have the replay of that first incident. And then we're going to see what happens here on the off of turn 2 on this particular lap. So here we have the 24. On the right side, we have what happened previously. Just trying to analyze. It looks like the 24 just breaks loose, and that blocks the racetrack up. That's how those guys get involved now. But there you see what happened between Delia and Escamilla just a handful laps earlier.
It looks like the trouble for both ends of the spectrum. They both end up involved in that incident. And for the most part, not that much damage to either party, so we will be able to get away without any more casualties on the racetrack. But for Juan Escamilla there, who was slightly involved, he's got a bit of right front damage, had to check up significantly just to get out of that. As several more drivers take pit road, Daniel Moore, Adam Alashire, Timothy Cook, Eric Schaefer, Kevin Delia, all of those at the back that have elected to come down pit road. And once more, we're looking at Brandon Hawkins staying out again, letting the entire field decide the strategy for him as he's continuing to lead this one under the yellow flag. He has led every single lap up until now, which is number 57. And we were talking to him about NOLA Motorsports Park and Prodigy 3, which is the sponsor that he's bearing tonight, and Sucker Punch, part of those teams that drafted him for the Prodigy 3 Racing League, which in its initiative is to help young sim racers that are very fast on iRacing get a chance at racing cars in the real world, whether they be the Radical SR1s that Hawken was talking about or several other real world racing cars. And they do have an overall schedule that starts at New Orleans Motorsports Park this weekend. So Brandon Hawken will be a part of that, taking part with his real-life teammates and getting a feel for the real race car, which is just awesome. And we wish the greatest of luck to Brandon Hawken as he takes on the real-world racing in just a couple of days. I certainly hope, though, Keelan, that this race doesn't take up most of his sleeping time and doesn't ruin his sleep schedule for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I mean, we keep having yellows like this. He may be up way later than he wanted to be. But we talked about him staying out. I mean, why not? Because these people behind him, they've all pit for tires, and they still haven't been able to catch him. He's been in another zip code. And at Richmond, he somehow saved 150 laps of fuel. That's how many laps we're running tonight. Granted, it's about double the laps of how much he had to save, or double the miles of what he had to save then. But he continues to kill that engine, and I want to be on top of it if he finds a way to make this. Because me and Francisco, we were behind at Richmond because we were like, there's no way this can happen. But we got to keep an eye on this on the yellows, Kenneth, because my goodness, if he made a believer out of us at Richmond. So
you know, Keelan, he can get us one time. He can fool us once. After that, no way. We have to be on top of it.
It's shame on us if he fools us again, right?
Right.
I was about to say that. That was right on par with what I was going to say, but you guys had it right on the head. I guess we all read each other's minds here. But we're getting the 1 to green this time by. It's Hawken and Benson, your front row. Jaden Porter in 3rd place, who has been hanging around where he is, and the Season 5 champ, who's the points leader going into tonight, says he feels good about it, but he doesn't really want to depend on points. He was almost asking a bit, Francisco, if you do get any bonus points for leading the regular season championship at the end of it, which is still a long way from now. But if there's anything Jaden Porter wants more than anything in this series, it's a W. He's seen his teammates be successful at that before. Porter desperately wants one. His consistent finishes have him knocking on the door for his first win since Dover of last year.
Porter has been very vocal on multiple occasions about how he wants to win races. He's the Season 5 champion, has a total, I believe, of 4 or 5 career wins, and the Dover win last season did not come the way he wanted to win a race. which was the post-race penalty. So he's trying to get back to victory lane, the classic way of crossing the finish line first. And here we are on board with him for this restart. Hawken with a great launch. Looks like Porter's going to hang to the inside of Benson here into turn 1.
Can he beat Kyle Benson there? No. Stays in line for third, but he's got Lawson Peel on the outside, who's been hugging the 7 degrees of banking on the top end of the speedway. And they're going to
Wow, what a run.
Peel will get the run off the corner, and he'll beat Porter there for what is third place on the racetrack.
That was a heck of a move right there. I mean, he put a car where a car did not belong right there, coming off the exit, and made it work to get the third position. Good recognition and awareness by Porter there to not just cut his nose off, because that would have been trouble for both of them right there. But Peel showing that aggression after losing some track position to Benson. A handful of laps to go, trying to recover.
Spinner,
as we see.
middle of the field.
Banks.
Brandon Banks and others involved, they are stacking up at the exit of turn 2. That's Timothy Cook and Michael Newbraw.
Just not been the ideal race for some of these guys. Looks like contact with Parks is what sent Banks around. Munier also sent spinning, but no damage for him. Daniel Moore and Adam Alistair also got a piece of this against the outside wall, trying to take avoiding action. So once again, turn 2, the side of it all, and I think, yeah, you see Banks gets loose. I think some slight neck code contact with the 17 finishes him off, and that sends him in front of the 6, in front of the 91 and the 77. So pretty hard contact there from both Newbraw and Timothy Cook. Those guys might end up laps down here trying to repair.
Onboard look from Daniel Moore.
Just goes around up there, and then everybody just locks up the brakes trying to stay out of it, and it's a straight line into each other from there. Moore into the back of Alishire. You see D'Elia sneaking by up there. Don't know if he got into anybody right there very aggressively. He might have locked it up and slowed it down in time, as that is another yellow to count as Brandon Hawken staying out again. But how about some of these guys that have entered the top 10? We were looking at the Canes machine of Austin Reedy there before the yellow came out. A guy who has not had his greatest season, sitting back there in 6th right now, trying to put together a good run today at New Hampshire, Kenneth. He's been doing solid for himself in that Murray Reedy Motorsports 34, where the luck hasn't seemed to be on his side.
Yeah, well, the Austin Reedy driver for Murray Reedy Motorsports found tons of struggles last season with the Xfinity Series car, and we talked about it from the jump of the season at Auto Club Speedway, where he crashed, had a torn-up race car, and there wasn't really much to say about it after then. The season was just the same as that crash. Lots of maybe moments, but for the most part, lots of bad luck. He did pick up a top 10, though, last week at Chicagoland after starting in 19th place. So there are moments of glimmer for Reedy, and there are places where he can make an imprint. We know Las Vegas, he had a pretty solid race as well. An Auto Club to note, but still yet to really capture the moments that he's been looking for. Also, talk about a driver with a pretty hefty winless streak. Reedy is on that list after not winning a single race back in Season 6 with the Xfinity Series car. You have to go back to Season 5 all the way to Atlanta Motor Speedway. The 10th race of that campaign is the last time Austin Reedy won a 4-wide race, Francisco.
It's been a while. Been a while for Austin Reedy for him to capture a victory, and it was a tightly contested battle there, that race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Got the win on the last lap, but it just has not worked out for him in Season 6. Season 7 seems to be a little bit better so far speed-wise, but just hasn't had that luck. Hoping he can turn things around. This is a track we've seen him run up front on, so we'll see if tonight, with these strategies, with these situations that present itself, if it's an opportunity for Austin Reedy to turn that luck around, and we'll see what it does for him. And we're getting notice here from Tyler Murray that the air has actually been the cause of a lot of the incidents tonight. I mean, that's probably the case, Kenneth, but I know a lot of it has to do with mechanical grip, because these cars tonight, they just do not have grip at all anywhere on the racetrack.
And when you straddle the seams, you know, you also have that situation where the tires won't agree with you either, and that happens at a lot of other tracks where you would have a lot more mechanical grip, but if you're in the middle of those seams, the grip is not there, and the car will slide out when you're carrying that momentum and shifting a 3,300-pound race car into the corner with not a lot of banking to support you. So we're seeing a lot of the guys face the same situation over and over again. It's center of the corner, either 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, where we're finding a lot of the troubles, and you could easily get the car sideways in the entry to the corner. Lots of times on braking, the car will shift out of line and then you're having to save the race car in the corner, which in turn often leads to an overcorrection or a full-on spin. We are back at this restart, lap 66, with the exact same front row as the last restart. Brandon Hawken and Kyle Benson will patrol us back to the green flag, with Lawson Peel and Jaden Porter to support in row number 2. Nobody yet to beat Hawken on the restarts. He's led every single lap until now. Green flag back in the air, and a bobble from Lawson Peel to turn 1.
Shades of Homestead right there, just not nearly as exaggerative. He's going to lose a couple of spots. Curtis Kelly's going to get to his outside. They're momentarily 3 wide, but they back out of that one. Austin Reedy goes around his outside to move up to P4, so great restart there for the driver of the 34 machine, trying to move his way up to the front.
And in the middle of that is Indiana's Trevor Haley. The former rookie driver from last season in his sophomore campaign was involved in one of the accidents earlier on tonight, but because of the attrition, he's fighting for a top 5 spot on the outside of Curtis Kelly near the 7 degrees of banking in that tertiary lane. They're following in the tracks of the Canes Ford Mustang. That's Austin Reedy. Haley has to save the race car before he gets out of shape, and there's Ryan Pandicio with Steven Maggio behind in the fight for P8.
Everybody back here that we are seeing are guys who have been involved in an incident one way or another. Besides Pandicio, I don't think we've seen him in trouble much, with the Charlie Byer photography onboard camera here right behind Haley. See if he can't pick off a position right there. That 63 car has been putting together a nice and solid run. Oh my goodness. Scary moment right there.
You almost jinxed him.
I mean, I just need to stop talking good about people, because this is what happens. They are 3 wide down the backstretch.
3 wide, and it's Scott Healy, the Team Conti Chevrolet, bullying his way to the inside, and he's got the spot.
Bauman tried to charge in there a little bit further back, just had to back out of that one with no grip. Lance Hill showing up to the picture, trying to gain some positions on his own right. A lot of these guys involved in incidents tonight trying to recover. They have some slightly better tires, but again, just because of the amount of caution laps, it's not outright a huge advantage, those tires that are going to be making on the rest of the field. Really what their game is just trying to get to a point where they don't have to pit anymore in this race. And if you're Brandon Hawken, he's definitely going to try to make it without having to pit at some point in this race. But the longer he delays that, Kenneth, that puts himself at a bigger challenge trying to drive through the field again, because if he can make it or is close to making it, certainly everybody who's pitted is going to be close, if not good to go.
It's going to be really close there for Hawken, but he continues to pull away. So, you know, the fuel situation will come down to it, but I'm sure Hawken really doesn't mind. He's already a 2-time winner this season. Could have had 3 in a row, just shy of the race win behind Steven Maggio, who we were looking at just there, who settles nicely into the top 5. And talking with Maggio earlier on,
roll around off turn 4.
Is out, and it's Craig Rowe once again.
And this is another single car incident. Kenneth just in the middle 3 and 4, the car breaks loose from him and he overcorrected into the outside wall.
Talk about how the car gets out of shape even when you're on the braking to the entry of the corner. Well, Rowe was saving it all the way down.
Yeah, just a classic incident of what we've seen here this evening. Just goes into the corner and it slowly starts to step away right there. And he's trying to keep it under his hands, but right there, just around she goes.
Pancakes it into the outside wall. Craig Rowe, the cause of another yellow flag as the field picks up the iRacing official pace car once more. It's been a long night from New Hampshire, but is this the moment that Brandon Hawken decides that now is the time? We're past halfway, at least a little under halfway in a sense. So Hawken can make this decision here, and he will be good on fuel and tires to the end. Especially given all the yellows we've seen tonight, you're not really using much of your Goodyear Eagles to spare. So does Hawken make the decision? The answer for right now is no. Everyone behind seems to think they want to fake him out, but everyone else will stay out on lap number 72 with another yellow in the books from New Hampshire. It has been a long one so far. Season 5 brought us the same storyline. Lots of cautions, but an eventual exciting winner. We could see the same. You're tuned into coverage of the 4 Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
available now.
Welcome back to the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Coverage of the 4Y Racing TJ's Team Series is brought to you by iRacing. Get your sim racing career started today at iRacing.com. By TJ's Team. To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, go to www.morethanacape.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. Big shout out to Tyler Murray, who told us a couple weeks ago that the web address is More Than a Cape, not Where More Than a Cape. I've been messing that up the whole time, but nonetheless, TJ's Team, the proud sponsor of this 4-wide racing series, and we're ready to get things back under green flag action. After a caution-filled race, we're about halfway. Brandon Hawken is yet to pit, and he's led every single lap. He's got Kyle Benson on his outside for the restart. Will we see a flinch from the Canadian? Green flag back in the air. Lap 76 from New Hampshire.
Being the leader is such an advantage on these restarts. You just decide when to go. And while, yes, those guys behind him have pitted, eventually all these cautions. Oh, we have a spin in the back. Spin in the back. It is the 34 of Austin Reedy around. He has made some contact on the front end of his race car. Lance Hill also spun around as well a little bit later. And just as we were talking about Austin Reedy, Kenneth, and that luck he was trying to turn around, trouble for him in turn one, spinning, going into the corner, getting hit by Pandiscio and Tyler Murray in the process, as well as Craig Rowe sees his afternoon going to a ravel.
Oh, what a shame that Ryan Pandiscio was in there, one of the strongest cars there in the last run, and he T-bones the spinning Reedy. Craig Rowe in there, Kevin D'Elia too, and the aforementioned Lance Hill, who had to serve the drive-through penalty tonight because of his incidents and shenanigans from Auto Club Speedway. All of a sudden, some extra damage assessed to the Busch car. Take a look.
Broke loose under braking there on the bottom, Kenneth, and we've talked about how those rear ends chatter when you get down on the brake. A little wheel hop action might have been what happened there on that restart, as he was. I mean, it's very flat down there on the bottom, so when you brake down there on the bottom, there's just not much grip there at all, and that is what shoots the Canes machine around. And unfortunate, because we were just talking about how good he's been running. I feel like everybody we talk good about ends up spinning around one way or another.
Seems to be the case for the short tracks.
Except Brandon Hawken, for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, well, not just for some. I mean, he's racing in New Orleans this weekend, so obviously he knows a thing or two about these race cars. But, I mean, it's spelling the same story that we saw at Richmond, Francisco. Restart after restart, Hawken up there, the battles for second, and that driver in second is Kyle Benson in the 38 machine.
Yeah, let's see if we can talk with Kyle Benson and see what is the case. And Kyle, you're in the booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, you've been P2 for a couple of restarts now. You have some slightly better tires than your race leader, but what do you need to actually get a good enough launch to try and beat him or try to battle him on one of these restarts?
I need his internet to cease existence. I don't know. I don't know. Restarts are hard on the top. The rear tire is starting to go away, so it's getting a little harder and harder on the outside to battle, but we'll just, keep doing what we're doing. I mean, we'll just keep chopping away at the tree, and hopefully it comes down.
Well, we need to get close to a couple opportunities, and we've also been discussing up here about the fuel situation. We know you've been down pit road. You mind sharing what your fuel situation is?
Classified.
Oh. I'm guessing that's gonna, if it's close, Hawken is probably also close. So, but we appreciate the time you take with us, Kyle, and good luck trying to get after it.
Yep, appreciate it, buddy.
Merida Motorsports is Kyle Benson.
Classified
on the fuel.
Oh, boy.
I thought, honestly, Francisco, he would be more of an open book about it, but he's not.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I guess he's trying to keep Hawken on his toes.
He's got an idea in there, too, I have a feeling.
I'll say this.
If he was really short, why wouldn't he just tell us he's really short? Or if he's good, he's got to be, like, on the number, man. Like, he's got to be there.
The fact that he said classified tells me there's a shot.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Exactly. So that means keep an eye on Hawken, who hasn't pitted, the only driver not to pit in this race. If push comes to shove, he might be close on fuel by the end of this race, because clearly some of the first guys that have pitted in this race are close.
The great Han Solo once said, "Never tell me the odds." I feel like that's what's happening here tonight with this calculation on fuel, and given the track position situation, that's why we're not seeing anyone come down pit road. They don't want to give it up because of all these yellows. You may find yourself in one if you're all the way at the back of the field. Let's reset the field for you as it stands. Your race leader is Brandon Hawken at lap 80. Kyle Benson right on the outside with Jaden Porter and Lawson Peel. They've been back and forth with inside and outside on the second row, but they are third and fourth regardless. Curtis Kelly having a solid night tonight in his 5-hour energy machine. He sits fifth. Trevor Haley is P6. AJ Green is 7th. Scott Healy 8th. Adam Alishire and Nicholas Bowen are into the top 10. AJ Green and Alishire, keep an eye on them, specifically Alishire with the tires they've got. Green flag back in the air, lap 81 with 70 laps to go. Hawken leading back to turn 1.
And that was not a good restart for Trevor Haley. I think he had an issue going up through the gears and stacked up a bit of the outside lane. Lawson Peel gets loose. He's going to be under fire by Trevor Haley now going into turn 3.
We saw Lawson Peel on the last run, specifically off turn 2, get that car sideways, keeps his momentum stalled in the effort to catch Jaden Porter. There's a two-way fight for position inside the top 10. Battle for 7th. AJ Green with Scott Healy underneath into turn 1, and the Team Conti's machine looking for 2-4-1 in the corner. Underneath, Curtis Kelly cannot get the Chevrolet to dial up the inside enough, and they remain side by side to the back straightaway.
Keeping it all together, though. Haven't seen anybody wreck it yet. Might have just jinxed it there, but they are keeping it together here in this battle for a top 5 position just about. Healy in that 64 making his second start of the season. His first was Watkins Glen. Didn't really put together a great run there. Was involved in a lap 1 yellow, but now he's battling it out with Curtis Kelly, who himself has had a very nice season. This is going to be the highest that Healy has been running so far today, trying to take that 6th position and maybe use Trevor Haley here in the 4 car as a pick to get up into the top 5 right there.
Setting the screen, backing up Kelly there in a turn 3. Haley does the wash up on the outside
3
of the
wide.
corner. Haley's going to give way. They're 3 wide, and the Team Conti Chevrolet of Healy remains even with Curtis Kelly. What a fight we're watching for 5th place.
And what a move on Trevor Haley. They just got him out of the way to keep their fight going and gained a spot each to keep that one going. So now they're battling each other for a spot inside the top 5. And Curtis Kelly gets loose and into the outside wall. He's going to be able to keep it straight, but he's going to lose out on that battle. As now Trevor Haley goes back to his outside. 71 might have a little bit of right front damage there. He should be A-okay, relatively speaking, but also just looking at just behind these guys, Steven Maggio on some of the freshest tires of some of those guys that have recently pitted is up to P9, as there you watch Lawson Peel trying to make a move on P3 on Jaden Porter.
Even the most experienced driver in this field cannot get used to the grip levels here in New Hampshire. He's been all sideways almost every single lap. The Season 4 champ, who was so dominant with these next-gen cars, finished in 10th the last time we were here back in Season 5 after starting his Chevrolet on the front row and on the pole. He faced several moments where he was near the inside wall, crashing out, but he found his way back to at least a decent finishing position. But New Hampshire hasn't treated him that much better than everyone else in this field. And Francisco, you've got a great battle building up right where you are. Steven Maggio leading a hefty group of cars back to turn 3.
And he'd just gotten around this group, just mentioned the tires and his situation there. He's able to get around these guys. Escamilla has had some trouble here tonight, but he is still trying to battle. Haley gets sideways in front of those 3, and they momentarily go 3 wide. Haley has had some moments here on this run, getting loose and losing positions.
The Indiana native is struggling, and there's his teammate Bauman on the inside, who Tyler Murray said after Auto Club Speedway was, quote, impressing the H out of him. Very happy to see what Nicholas Bauman has been able to do in the several races of his rookie campaign. And the Dark Horse Motorsports Mustangs are nose to tail. How about the send by Eric Schaefer? Keelan, someone we haven't noted about much of this race because he's found himself involved in plenty of the cautions tonight, but he is usually one of the better short track drivers of the series, specifically in this car. He runs 13th right now.
Yeah, historically a very good short track driver in that flannel Busch Light machine right there, battling for the 12th position with Bauman right here. He qualified up front, rolled off I believe in the 6th position, but he has been involved in many incidents this evening, but slowly trying to climb his way up there as we start to get a string of green flag laps going, trying to make his way to the front up there with his teammate Lawson Peel. who sits back there in 4th as we see Stephen Maggio and Curtis Kelly battling it out for a top 5 spot.
Kelly starting to hemorrhage spots here. Juan Escamilla, Adam Alashire, those several other cars back there to the edge of the top 10. And Maggio, as Francisco noted, has better tires than a majority of the guys in front of him. It's give or take 24 laps, the difference in favor of Maggio to the next car in line. That's AJ Green, who's just crossing the start-finish line right now. And talking to Stephen Maggio a bit before we got this race open here from New Hampshire, he told me that he rarely cares about the point situation and only wants to be there if it gives him a shot at the race win. He said that he was struggling with spinning out the race car in practice here at this track, but he told me that he'll aim for points if he doesn't have a chance, but for the most part, he doesn't care about anything else, Francisco. He's employed that method through this season, and it's worked out so far. The defending winner from Chicagoland, winning last week in stunning fashion over Brandon Hawken, and already with 2 wins on the season. It's been very impressive for the 51.
I was going to say that strategy is very helpful, especially when he got a win in his first start, meaning every other race he's able to approach with that kind of style that he just mentioned. So, I mean, why not? Just go for broke, and if it doesn't work out, well, you have those victories that keep you in the playoffs, and you might get some more in the process, so why not? Right now, a hefty battle for position. Lawson Peel and Jaden Porter. Porter has trying to hold off Lawson Peel. Peel has been trying the top. He's been trying the very bottom. Just the last lap, he ran the apron below the yellow line all the way around 3 and 4 trying to get by Porter.
That's the lap and the type of lap he was putting down in practice. And on the right side of your screen is where Peel is able to make a lot of his money here in 3 and 4 on Porter. Doesn't use the apron this time, but he's looking for that diamond approach, Keelan. And you and Charlie talking about that hours pre-race when I was asking you guys what the keys to this race were. And Charlie specifically mentioned it, using the diamond approach, getting the car arced up in the center of the corner and arcing back down. The yellow flag is out, though, and we'll get to it. Kevin D'Elia seems to be the man involved as he gets his car spun around. That's turn 4, where the trouble is.
Car spin there for D'Elia. He had some damage on his race car and just kind of spins on him all by himself.
Seems like the diagnosis all night long, right, Keelan?
Yeah, seems to be, as we see our 12th yellow of the same fashion right here. Another just spin under the braking, dirt tracking it through the whole corner and looping it around. And we'll see maybe now after a good 10 laps of green right there if Hawken is enticed to pit here. He's in second gear. He's not saving fuel right now. I don't know. I think this could be the time.
He did the same thing on the last cross, and he was running around second gear before peeling off the pit lane. Let's see if he starts to make that left-hand turn, and yes, he's going to bring it in.
And here comes everyone else behind. Kyle Benson, Jaden Porter, and several of the lead lap machines are following suit. Almost nobody is staying out here. So everyone, the consensus call guys, are coming in at lap 94.
Tony Kivett stays out.
And now it's about who wins the race off pit road. Kyle Benson and company, they're in. So is Brandon Hawken from the leading pit box starting spot. Everyone else ends up in without a problem. They don't skirt through their box. And as Kivett stays out, everyone else will try and find their way out first from pit road. Left sides are up, and it's Stephen Maggio with a 2-tire call, leads the race off the lane.
He had some of those fresher tires from having pitted very recently, Kenneth, so why not go for 2 tires if your left sides aren't really worn all that much? You get the track position on Hawken, and you won't be in the same line as the 76, so why not?
What a call by Maggio here, Keelan.
Yeah, these are going to be the first laps all day that have not been led by Brandon Hawken, which is just insane as he has been dominant. But how about that call by Maggio? Something I would be too scared to do. Maggio, obviously, he's good for the playoffs with those 2 wins. So could we see another classic brewing between Maggio and Hawken like we saw last week at Chicagoland in one of the greater races we've seen in a 4-wide racing league? These two know how to race each other. They know each other very well as we take another look at Chicagoland and how Stephen Maggio got that win.
Well, this is the storyline of 1 week ago. Maggio, the dominant car from the drop of the green flag. And while Brandon Hawken started 15th, it didn't take him long to move up through the field. That was the first caution and the first race off pit road. AJ Green barely getting to Maggio there but this was the pivotal restart where Hawken was there and trying to catch up several laps on end where these two were nose to tail, and several times, Francisco, where Hawken did just that, peeking to the inside, trying to get position. All for naught, though, until the green flag pit stops came and Hawken took the race lead.
Yeah, Hawken basically got passed here a couple laps later by Maggio, and they sat nose to tail for the last 30 laps of this race, but Hawken never really able to get by, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. He was trying to see if he can get into the mind of the 51 horse and look into the mirror, admittedly saying that in the post-race interview, trying to see, right here, for example, he wasn't going to send that all the way in and make contact. He was just trying to see if Maggio would drive it in deep in the defense of a potential dive bomb and then go right by him without making a contact whatsoever. But just the 51, great job holding on under pressure, and Maggio able to capture his second win of his rookie campaign, continuing the presence of rookie drivers having excellent start to their careers, like many former champions that have won a series championship in their first full-time effort.
Remember with Jaden Porter in his first full-time effort, what he was able to do and create some magic of his own. Colin Forrester back in Season 3 along with AJ Green. How many statements they made by winning their races and getting to the championship finale at Homestead Miami Speedway. Steven Maggio has a proper case to take the race lead here on 2 fresh tires, everyone else on 4, and Tony Kimmett gambling on a no tire call to stay out. Let's see how this one goes. Lap 98 of 150. Tony Kimmett brings us back to the green flag from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Maggio playing defense on Brandon Hawken, and here we go. Maggio for the lead in turn 1.
And he'll have the grip, so he should roll this outside. He's gonna get loose. Hard hit.
And hard into the wall goes Maggio. Race is over. And that is the dagger. Yellow flag out with 52 laps to go.
That looked very similar to what we saw with Colin Forster earlier in this race, guys. I don't know if that was contact behind him, maybe from Benson again that caused that. But it looked similar, same exact car behind. We'll get a look and see if it tells the same story as Maggio trying to get a run on Kimmett, who's on no tires here, to get a good restart. Benson not as close this time. May have been just an issue of spinning that race car around, overcorrecting, and that's exactly what it is. There wasn't room on the bottom to correct because Kimmett was right there as he just overcorrects it into the fence. A story we have seen play out all night long from the Magic Mile, and this time this time it strikes the 51.
Well, Francisco, tell us what happens here with Maggio as he gets into the outside wall. Looks like, again, like Keelan said, no real contact from Benson behind him.
Yeah, no contact from Benson, just cold tires and also a little bit of lack of patience being shown. He had the better tires than Kimmett, but right here you can hear them trying to feather the throttle. Too much throttle with too cold of tires that sent him head on into the outside wall, ending his race.
So that will do it for Steven Maggio in absolutely heartbreaking fashion. And on that 2-tire call, almost looked like he could get it to work. But the cold tires get the best of him, and all of a sudden, that's the yellow flag. We want to apologize there for the technical difficulties. I think Keelan was laughing because of that.
Oh my gosh.
That's exactly why he was
to
laughing.
Francisco's camera, which we have a solo shot of, but it seems to be the same scene where we have that weather scan feature, that little bug that we added a couple weeks ago at Auto Club and Watkins Glen. So maybe we need a weather break after all this.
I think we do. I think we're in store for one.
All right, well, in all this, Tony Kimmett continues up front with the race lead. Brandon Hawken in second, and again, Tony Kimmett did not come down pit road under the last yellow flag, so he is on the oldest set of tires in the field. As we noted, 28 laps, so not the worst case in the world if you're Kimmett, but it still is something when you look at the rest of the field behind and you see only fresh tire cars. Let's get a word with Kimmett now. Tony, you got a word with us in the booth?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, Tony, well, this is a great call. Staying out all by yourself. What went behind the call, and how has the race been so far for you?
I'm just good on fuel, and I said I wasn't pitting anymore.
All right.
So that was my only strategy.
Simple enough. Very simple, but you've got a lot of competition behind you. Hawken, Benson, tons of drivers behind you that you haven't raced much throughout this event because of all those cautions and everything that's happened. So how do you play the next several restarts, and what do you hope to see out of these last 49?
Well, Kenneth, I ain't gonna lie. You all know I ain't even close to the speed these guys got. I'm just out here leading some laps and wasn't gonna pit, and I'm just gonna try not to get in their way. I'm happy if I can just get in the top 10, 15. To tell you the truth.
All right, Tony. Well, we hope
I
it
do
all
not
works
have the
out.
pace of. I don't. Not that anybody here's got the pace that Brendan's got. Actually,
It's been tough to
Brandon's
catch Brandon.
fast.
That's for sure.
These yellows keep falling. I mean,
right. I mean, I'm just out here having a good time, man.
You'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Like I said, I'm led the second most laps in the race.
That's true. That's true. You
Yep.
and Brandon are the only ones in that list. So, Tony, we appreciate
Yep.
the time. Hopefully it stays clean up front, and best of luck on the restart.
All right, now appreciate y'all.
That's Tony
I'm
Kimmett.
bragging rights.
He said, I'm not going to pit anymore. That is a bold strategy. He's got heavy competition around him. Well, if the yellows keep falling, like Keelan said, you never quite know. Kimmett the leader on this next restart. Lap 103, 47 laps to go. Brandon Hawken on the outside of the front row. Kimmett's got the jump. Green flag back in the air.
He's nailing restarts like that, and Hawken is just gonna whoop
My
around the
God.
outside. Oh wow!
And they're three
he clears
wide.
them.
Brandon Hawken on the outside. Steals the race lead, and Kyle Benson fights for second place.
And he gets cleared for the second spot. Now Jaden Porter and Pure side by side. Looks like Pugh's going to easily clear Kivet, and Porter gets held up as Escamilla gets spun around by AJ Green. They both go sliding up into the wall. The caution flag's going to wave. Big crash.
And there's Nicholas Bauman, Timothy Cook, and others involved. The yellow flies. And in all that, Tony Kivet only leaves from 5th. So not the worst decline in the world on that restart. AJ Green also involved. The Beef Machine has seen a lot of it tonight. And several contenders involved in this most recent caution that takes place in the midway portion of the field. Just started to look like 3 wide, Keelan, between the 3 you see on screen. Scott Healy, Escamilla, and the black and white Chevrolet of AJ Green.
oh, Green just gets in there really deep and gets into Escamilla. Green wasn't even going to make that corner himself, as you saw him kind of break sideways right there, as they just pile in behind him. It's hard to get in these corners, Kenneth. I mean, we've seen incidents where they're sliding going into the corners and incidents where they kind of lock up going in too deep. It's kind of like going into a road course corner, kind of like Kenneth when you, or like going down into turn 4 at Sonoma where you're either wheel hopping or you're locking up. It kind of seems to be something like that, the way these cars drive, and similar packages, so I mean, you get the similar results.
You've got different approaches into the entry of that corner, and as we were talking about during the KBRN onboard lap, there's a bit of darkened asphalt right before turn 3 and some boards on the right side of you when you're driving into the corner on the fence. That is the marker that a lot of drivers use to go into the corner, but some others use different markers. Some like to be more confident on the brakes, Francisco, so you'll see that discrepancy often in the braking entry, and AJ, it seems like, thought he could dive it in deeper than he actually could. And then he catches Scott Healy, he catches Escamilla, and Nicholas Bauman, one of the Dark Horse Motorsports Fords, is also involved in this too.
Watch this view right here as they start crashing in front of him. Boom. Never a fun hit when you hit with a rear front end of the race car. It's usually an engine killer.
And for Bauman, he struggled all night long. He takes his Ford Mustang to pit road. Craig Rowe, his teammate, in front of him. And we can imagine, obviously, that the several other Dark Horse Motorsports Fords have hit pit road recently, a lot of that for damage repair. And Juan Escamilla, who was involved in that most recent caution, has called it quits. He is out of this race. 106 laps in the going. And Keelan, I'd say that's pretty frustrating if you're a driver, because you think you can get all the way to the end, but the buildup of cautions, the buildup of incidents that you happen to be involved in, even in some cases, if your car is not completely totaled from the crash, you're mentally worn out by that point, to the point where, you know, you're like an Escamilla and you're saying to yourself, is this really worth racing at the end? And a lot of that creates the attrition and the DNFs that we've seen.
Yeah, they gridded up about an hour and a half ago right now on the dot, so they've been here a while in these race cars, sitting through all these caution laps, and eventually late in a race, it's a frustration thing. I mean, we saw it with Who was it? Was it Bubba Wallace in the Pro Invitational at Bristol? I mean, this sim racing stuff, it gets to you when you get involved in yellows. Even if they don't kill your car, you get frustrated. It's easy to exit out of the session, and I feel like sometimes that's what some of these guys do. But I mean, props to a lot of them for sticking around.
Now you mentioned that, Keelan. Kenneth, I'm pretty sure you're going to remember this. It was season 3 at Pocono. We were having a couple of cautions in that particular race, and then all of a sudden, Brian M. Smith just absolutely floors it into turn 1 under caution, and basically ends his own race because of the amount of cautions, and he was the leader of the race.
Yeah, that happened, and again, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the race leader or whether you're back in 16th, it can happen to you. But we do have official confirmation from Juan Escamilla in the YouTube chat. He says that he lost connection to the race server, so not necessarily out of frustration, just out of the internet going away for him. Poor situation there for Escamilla. Hopefully we can see him come back into the session sooner than later. Brandon Hawken gets the green flag once again, a lap 108 with 42 laps to go. Kyle Benson right behind, Lawson Peel settling in 3rd, Jaden Porter getting by Tony Kiven, and they're 3 wide in turn 2.
3 wide.
And contact.
Yeah, a little bit of contact coming off of 2 as they continue to battle it out. Schaefer getting around Haley there on the inside. The Tennessee Lance Hill Busch Light cars. Haley bounces off the fence back there. Wow, that is a move right there. That's like what AJ Green did in practice, it looked like right there.
And they are absolutely slicing their way through the field. There were 4 wide there in turn 4, and they're 4 wide in turn 1. Eric Schaefer in the middle of 3 wide. That's Curtis Kelly on the inside. Craig Lounslager up top. Craig Parks all the way down low, and it is pandemonium back to turn 3.
Oh my, what kind of racing do we have here with guys using up each other, getting into the bumper, just being real aggressive overall, trying to get all these positions they can, and it's all happening behind Brandon Hawken, who just has unbelievable pace here today. Just nobody really able to compete with them, and the battle for second is starting to heat up with Lawson Peel and Kyle Benson.
And a spinner, AJ Green, the beef car slides in turns 1 and 2. That's the yellow, and Brandon Banks almost loses it himself as the yellow came out, but it's AJ Green in the trouble. Single car spin, yellow flag again.
And he had some help this time.
Yeah, you talked about it earlier in the show, Kenneth, about how they just haven't been consistent in that 48 camp. They've had good runs and they've had bad runs, and today it started out good, but ever since about that yellow where he went around, it's been a bad run for that 48 team. And it's been a race to forget for sure, as might have had some help from Nicholas Bauman.
Looked like a stack up there, Francisco, between Parks in front and Bauman right behind him.
Not sure. Looks like they just went breaking in for the corner, and I think Green was just trying to roll it better than he had been in the 14, just trying to carry more speed into the corner, gets into AJ Green in the process, and sends him spinning.
Secondary look from the back end of Green, the left side, the front end of the car as he faces the tire barrels there on the inside of what is the New Hampshire road course. But Green all of a sudden involved in the accident. Nobody else seems to really be involved in that either, so the caution flag waves without a hitch, and we are back under the iRacing official pace car. Now, there are no concerns anymore about whether drivers can make it on tires or fuel, so there is really an elimination of concern for most of these guys up front, specifically the race dominator, Brandon Hawken. But you never know what could happen. We've seen so many restarts. It only takes one mistake for the race leader to create something, and I mean anything, for the race lead. And Kyle Benson, Lawson Peel, all those guys behind can take advantage. Let's get to the YouTube chat where our main man, Charlie Beyer, has asked us a question. He says, good evening, gentlemen. Different question this week, guys. What are your favorite paint schemes being showcased in the field tonight? I feel like we don't necessarily do this often. Francisco, what's yours?
Oh boy, I'd rather divert to you guys. I have to go through here and really look at every car.
Okay, Keelan, you got one already, or you also need some deliberation?
No, I mean, I got this. If the guys that made the start today, I'd have to go back to Steven Stempy, and I mean, that car is just beautiful. It's a throwback, but my goodness, that car is beautiful. But for cars on the track right now, I mean, you can't go wrong with one of the KBRN cars, right? I mean, that's you know,
okay,
that's the brand. But I'm going to go with Kyle Benson sitting back there in second. That Hey Dude machine, it is beautiful. And as a Hey Dude enjoyer myself, he did a good job on this one.
Well, remember last week, guys, at Chicagoland, when he gave us that pedal cam, he had a pair of Hey Dudes right next to his set of pedals. So he was repping it.
I mean, that's
on the
brand
camera,
representation right there. Thank God he didn't do that for Dude Wipes.
That's true. Francisco, have you looked enough to find a favorite?
So, intuition would lead me to want to say CJ Munier and his Wawa machine. Definitely want to make sure people are aware of that Wawa machine out there on the racetrack. However, it certainly has to be Austin Reedy's Raising Cane's machine. Who doesn't love some really good Raising Cane's chicken and their excellent cane sauce?
I said it a couple weeks ago. It's carried by their sauce.
I agree to disagree, but it's certainly really good to eat.
Oh boy.
And it's a really good paint scheme.
Don't know if we'll have a bit of beef on that, but...
You know, that may be Charlie Byers in the chat. That may be his favorite. He's a Canes guy.
Well,
yeah.
For those watching in the YouTube chat, what is your favorite paint scheme you've seen tonight? We're getting into the conversation. We've had a ton of yellows tonight, but there are a lot of beautiful paint schemes out there. If there was one that I had to pick that isn't a KBRN car, I'm going to go with Craig Lautenslager. He's sponsored AMD for as long as I can remember, and he's really stepped it up this season. Rory Beatty Motorsports have had some phenomenal paint schemes over the season, and this might be one of my favorite. If it's not the Mobile One Gold car, it's a silver base with a bit of orange, a bit of dark gray, and while designing the number, the gradient on the orange just looks wonderful with the rising colors. I'm picking Craig Lautenslager, who sits in 11th right now, as we're ready for the restart. Lap 115, Kyle Benson is pinching Brandon Hawken for all that it's worth, trying to get this momentum to the first corner, but no one's been able to beat the Canadian thus far. Brandon Hawken launches the field back to turn 1 from New Hampshire, switches up high to block Benson into the first corner, and Lawson Peel dives his nose underneath for second.
Well, at some point, Kyle Benson's going to try and estimate and guess this restart to try and break even with the 98 of Brandon Hawken. Otherwise, basically something like this is going to happen. And look at that dive by Peel all the way below the apron, trying to see if he can make up some positions there. There's some tight racing further on back, some 3 wide action.
Lawson using a bit of the apron there in 3 and 4 to help his case on Kyle Benson, but cannot at least convince the jury that he's worthy.
Oh, and Lautenslager getting turned.
And Lautenslager's in trouble in the back. Yes, he is, and his teammates get into it. Tyler Murray, there's Nicholas Bauman for Dark Horse Motorsports, and the one car I bring up gets involved in the crash. I am dearly sorry.
Craig Lautenslager, we sincerely apologize on behalf of Kenneth Bueno for that one, but we're going to have to see exactly how this one brought up. There was some contact there with Pandicio, that's for sure.
Here's the aerial shot from the AMD Ryzen Ford Mustang, and you're right. Pandicio diving into the corner, sends it into Lautenslager. The Canes car, Reedy gets into it. Boy, that was a triple dipper there for Murray Reedy Motorsports. 3 of their Ford Mustangs involved there.
Is that a Chili's reference right there?
Perhaps.
Your favorite restaurant.
Pandicio just gets in there really deep. Reedy right behind him. We just talked about his scheme too.
Looks like we all jinxed everybody.
I mean, Kyle Benson's with you. I mean, if something happens to Benson, I'm sorry.
Well, I will say that Chili's reference, it comes as no shock. You know, Kenneth absolutely loves Chili's, for those that don't know.
It is one of my favorite restaurants of all time, and I can tell you I was extremely pleased when I was at Daytona earlier this season for the 500, and I saw that Corey LaJoie had a Chili's car for that night. He visited the local Chili's there in Daytona Beach a couple of days before the race just to give out some merchandise. All the waiters and waitresses wearing Chili's Spire Motorsports merch, something I've never seen before, but really cool.
I'll hop on board with you, Kenneth. I do love me some Chili's. I just wish they wouldn't have got rid of their fried pickles. That was one of the best things to me. But that's also something they do at Cheddar's. I went to the Cheddar's across the street from Daytona. Every waitress there was wearing a Kyle Busch Cheddar's pit shirt. It's kind of cool.
You got a number 8 special?
I did get a number 8 special that day.
Yeah.
I got them in Buffalo.
Oh, they're awesome. Oh. And you know, I do got a question for you about those Chili's restaurants, Kenneth. Do you know if they were serving out that Chili's fuel to use on these race cars?
I don't know. I don't think they were. I wish they were. Maybe it's marinara sauce or something, but maybe it's a bit of the chocolate from the molten chocolate cake.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Whatever they got in there, I need to find me a piece I can put into my Cessna 172 November because avgas is pretty expensive.
Yeah. Well, the molten chocolate cake, in my opinion, greatest item
Don't get me
that
started
Chili's
on
has
that.
ever created, mini or normal. It is the best. And I'm glad that the YouTube chat's getting in on this as well. Charlie told us his favorite paint scheme, and it is, I'd say with full bias from Charlie's perspective, the 14 car. Nicholas Baumann, that's a Mobile 1 paint scheme. I'm not sure whether this was an actual scheme that Tony Stewart did run, but anything that invokes Tony Stewart's career is something that Charlie is very much a fan of. I mean, remember back in Halloween, his costume back in 2008 was Tony Stewart. Big fan of Tony Stewart throughout his entire career. And we're getting some love for Zaxby's here as well. King Diamond Production tells us Raising Cane's is better than Zaxby's. I guess giving some love to both of them, but saying that Cane's is a little better. Getting a lot of good stuff on Chili's, though. I think that's the biggest point.
Hey, you remember when I tried to put you on the skillet queso, Kenneth? Have you got on that yet?
I know I have not. I've been faithful.
Kenneth.
I've been faithful to my Big Mouth Bites, faithful to my Chicken Bacon Ranch quesadillas. They hit like always. Never fail me.
You need to get on that skillet queso, though. I mean, that's the greatest thing.
All right.
Hey, all I'm saying is that if you're not in South Florida, you do not know what Flanagan's is, and I will keep that to myself or be willing to show anybody who shows up. And you know that, Kenneth. It is really good.
If there's anyone in the world that's the proper Flanagan's enjoyer, it's Francisco Bacalhau.
Yes,
Here. I've
yes,
never heard
absolutely.
anyone in this county at all, Miami-Dade, that has promoted Flanagan's as much as Francisco has. It's going to make us hungry. We might have to order food when this race is over.
I ate from there earlier.
All right.
Chili's may be DoorDashed.
Yep, maybe
This evening.
DoorDashed at the checkered flag. There's 30 laps to go. Brandon Hawken continues as the race leader. Kyle Benson on the outside of the front row. And Lawson Peel, Jaden Porter, they've settled basically in their cocoon, third and fourth on that second row. They have not moved. In fact, nobody's moved from the top four. Everyone fifth on back have shuffled, but your top four have stayed the same, frankly, since our last several cautions in the race. Well, let's see how this one is decided. Brandon Hawken once again jumps out in front. Benson gives him a better fight, though, at the entry of turn one. He can get his nose to the outside, but can he use the second lane to properly rotate off the corner? He's trying to get there, but Hawken beats him off of turn two, Francisco.
And he has a moment off of turn two that lets Lawson Peel get to the inside of Benson to try and challenge for that position. And we see Scott Healy a little bit further back challenging as well inside the top five, trying to take position away from Alshire, who's done a good job moving his way up. And there you see Peel able to almost get in front of Benson.
He's making sure, Keelan, that he doesn't get into the side of Benson and create that similar loose moment that he experienced earlier in the race. Benson's not going to give him enough space, though, midway through 1 and 2. And the battle for second continues heating up off the back straightaway.
Still side by side, battling it out here for the second position, and this is what Hawken wants to see. Just allows him to make that gap, and on these restarts, he has shown why he has been the guy up front. You saw it there on the backstretch off the restart. He just built a gap between him and the guys battling for second right now as they continue side by side, getting close. They got door to door earlier in this race. It cost Peel. We'll see if that happens again as they continue to race door to door. This is great racing here at the Magic Mile.
We're looking at the Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera. Now on the right side, Kevin D'Elia, a bit of a sideways moment. Caution flag is out, though, as Peel steals second place. And we'll get a look at who might have been involved in that. Christopher Bishop, the lone car in disaster on the back straightaway.
Turn two has been disaster corner here this evening, but this time it was not a solo car incident. Kenneth looks like he had some help from the 19 of Timothy Cook.
Get the secondary look at it from the outside of turn two. It's the Surge Ford Mustang in center of your screen. There's a backup by Michael Newbraw, but the real culprit here is that Auto Owners Toyota of Timothy Cook, giving him a bit of help down the back straightaway. Thankfully, Bishop does a wonderful job of keeping it off the inside guardrail. We've seen plenty of drivers already get into that, but for Bishop, he escapes any significant damage. Tires may be shot quite a little bit, but for the most part, Bishop in trouble, and the yellow flag is out as we are about 25 laps away from the end of this race from Loudon. Let's get a look at our race summary from New Hampshire with 27, now 26 laps to go. We've got 18 cautions for 67 laps and only 2 lead changes, Francisco. That's Brandon Hawken and Tony Kibbett. The only time we've seen it happen.
Well, Pivot was saying that he's the only other driver to lead in this race besides Brandon Hawk, and if that stays true between now and the checkered flag, he's going to carry that with him for the next couple of races.
Yeah, when we look at the stats of this race, when we look back on it, Tony Kivett is going to have 8 laps led, and that is something to be proud of with how dominant Hawken has been today. So good for that 76 car, and I still think he hasn't hit pit road. I think he's stayed true to that strategy when he said he's not going to pit again.
And this race, caution-wise, has fallen the same way as Season 5. It hasn't gone the same way in the laps led category, because in Season 5, we had 5 different drivers lead more than 10 laps. Tonight, only 1, and that's for your leader, Brandon Hawken.
He's going to show us on this restart here, if he doesn't have contest from that 12 of Lawson Peel, I want us to watch what he does off of 2, and he really shows us on these restarts where he's making the most speed around this racetrack and how he's able to build such a gap. He is getting off these corners and down the straightaways better than anybody else in the field right now, and that is how he is just gapping everybody. He's getting off the corners well, and with how long these straightaways are, he's just executing perfectly. You can have all the speed you want in the center of the corner on Hawken, but he's going to beat you down the long straightaways where most of the racetrack is.
All right, well, as we get the 2 to go signal here, ready for the 1 to go from the iRacing official pace car, which will have an extra one in the new Season 1 2025 build. That's going to be a BMW safety car that's of option. Francisco has a question in the chat. He's going to ask us himself what the music summary of the year has been. I mean, the year's not over, but the Spotify Wrapped, Apple Music replays are starting to come out. Francisco, what's yours been like?
Well, if you know me well, then you kind of know what to expect towards the top side of that list. We had some Metallica on there, some Megadeth, Judas Priest.
Katy Perry.
No, she's not that high up on the list this year. Keelan, she had her fair share of run, but no, you got to include also some Anthrax. Eminem is always up there as well. Iron Maiden. Honestly, a lot of the thrash metal heads are always up there. In particular, what about you guys?
We ought to make sure when Spotify Wrapped comes out that we have a segment for the Dropping the Hammer pre-race show, Kenneth, when that comes around, so everybody knows and they can judge us well. But I'm pretty sure on the top of mine is going to be a lot of country. I'd assume some Alan Jackson up there, Morgan Wallen, and probably Creed up there. I've been listening to a lot of Creed this year.
Can't believe Francisco didn't know about Creed until last
week in
Chicago
He didn't.
night.
We had to educate him on that pre-race. He didn't know who Creed was.
It's not my style of rock.
All right, well, we've got 23 laps to go. Brandon Hawken in control. This time it's Lawson Peel on the outside of the front row, and he bubbles. He'll get spun on the entry of the restart, and he stacks up the entire field on the way there. Yellow flag is out. The big one occurs in Loudon.
Oh, and he gets a second piece there towards the end. And big trouble for Lawson Peel. Either it was a wheel spin or just a shifting issue, and it might have been a shifting issue, Kenneth, on the 12 car.
2 weeks in a row where Lawson finds trouble, and this time it's on the restart after having a clean race car the entire race. It all changes with 22 remaining, and it's all on this restart. Keelan, how does this go down from Peel on the front row?
We're going to get a look here, and it looks like he just didn't get up to speed, and Porter was all over him. We'd get a better look when we get an in-car look here on this next shot here to see where his gears were to get an angle on what happened. As we can see his dash right here, he's in first coming to the restart. I feel like he just never made it out of first, guys. See him revving
No, he
up?
didn't.
He just didn't make it out of first, couldn't get the car shifted, and with that anti-stall clutch that a lot of these guys use to get the speed on a restart, sometimes that's what you'll have. You'll be unable to blip the throttle and get it up to second, and that's just what cost him right there. He could never get up to second. And I mean, what's Porter going to do there? He has nowhere to go besides there. But it's just unfortunate for Peel. Every time he's gotten around Benson and got into that second position with a chance to run down the 98, something has caused him problems. And he may be taking out his frustration on this racetrack right now.
It looks like the car's not even turning here, Francisco. There may be suspension damage on the front end.
Yeah, he did. He got hit on several parts of his race car in particular, and they were mostly the right front tire, left front tire. So that's definitely going to do it for his suspension, which is required time and extensive optional time, which is really what we saw at Chicagoland, the extent of his damage there. And we talked about this in the pre-race. Lawson Peel's either out there dominating, winning a race, or is in a situation like this, and it's always been the case when he's shown up to New Hampshire. It's never been his way.
And that will make it 2 races in a row, to which Lawson Peel is buried beneath the top 20. Obviously, still has a chance to get back in this race, but with the damage that just accrued from the restart, he may be in here for a while, and he may fall down several laps from the leaders. Brandon Banks, his teammate, is also in. Looks like CJ Munier found his Chevrolet on pit road, so Drinkin' Bros Racing, plenty of them have struggled over the course of the race so far, and it's not been kind to them. So in all of that, Kyle Benson takes away second. Scott Healy gets up to a race-high third. He sort of joked with me a couple weeks ago at Watkins Glen and said, how did you not know that was me? When it was lap 1 and he got involved in a spin with Mikey Neal. And I said, I just could not remember the paint scheme. It didn't take long enough for me to register that was you. And he laughed about it, said it's all good. Now he's got a more prominent paint scheme, and the Season 2 champ, Francisco, has a shot at the win from New Hampshire.
Absolutely has a chance to win this race. He was a sneaky win in Chicagoland last season, just kind of showed up out of nowhere in the long run and took the win from, you guessed it, Brandon Hawkins. So could history repeat itself?
I don't know. It's getting awfully close, though. The only thing is that no one has been able to beat Hawkins off of the straightaway, and even after several restarts where lots of guys can take note of what the leader does and then anticipate what they do, it seems as though Hawkins is the driver that has caught everyone off guard no matter who they are. And no matter how many times they take a green flag restart, he always has them beat to turn 1. So he may try this again with under 18 laps to go, as he'll lead the field back to green. Benson and Healy, your top 3. Jaden Porter up in 4th. He's been there, it seems like, all night long, with Adam Alashire breaking into the top 5. Trevor Haley, who's been back and forth over the evening, is back in 6th place. Eric Schaefer, who was at 1.2 laps down in this race, is going to be 7th with Curtis Kelly, Tony Kibbett, and Austin Reedy back in 10th. Maybe the real genius here was Tony Kibbett, because he may escape this race with a solid top 10 and 8 laps led. But Brandon Hawkins wants the win, and the win only. It could be his 3rd of the season if he does get it. And the pace car will make its left to the entry of pit road. The Chevrolet of Hawkins is the control car. The Ford Prancing Horse Mustang of Benson is there to react. Green flag with 18 laps to go from New Hampshire.
So difficult restarting a second, and Benson's getting sideways, and Porter gets turned into the outside wall. He's out of the race, and a big crash behind them.
And the caution flag delays, but it's finally out. Adam Alashire collects the rest of the field in collateral damage. And now the leaders are starting to feel the brunt.
That might be the end of Jaden Porter's race. He hit the wall head on. He's still running, but that engine is probably all but over.
And does that end his streak of top 10s, Keelan?
It's looking likely. That car is pretty tore up as the attrition has hit everybody here. I think everybody but
Brandon
Hawkins have been involved in a caution in one capacity or another, as it is a hard hit for Porter, something we've seen all evening. Just sideways right there is Benson. Ooh, he got tagged by Alashire right there, and that may have been what sent him around. Maybe overcorrection with that contact, as we see the Charlie Bauer Photography onboard camera with him here.
Out to the gears to turn 1. He is pushing Benson down the straightaway, trying to get him a run. And then while Benson makes contact with Healy, Porter gets loose and then bounces off of Alashire, goes hard into the wall. Trevor Haley, Alashire, Schaefer, and others pack it up down low. And for Jaden Porter, that may just be race over for him. We'll try to get a better look at what happened there with Schaefer and company on the inside of the racetrack. So there's the Busch Light Chevrolet. Alashire gets sideways, and as Schaefer tags Haley, he tries to escape it and just cannot. He tries to get out of the tire barriers too. He goes a full 360 just to get out of the wall. But Francisco,
that's a good move.
That takes out a lot of hefty hitters, and obviously Jaden Porter, who hasn't finished worse than 6th place since after Daytona, will have to settle for a tough one tonight.
We may have a new points leader.
I don't know if Kyle Benson being involved in that incident is going to assist Al Porter.
Third, though.
Yeah, but Porter also did have a pretty stout gap going into this race, so I
think it was 20 points. I mean, we'll see for sure, but this is gonna at least close that gap up pretty significantly if Benson stays where he is.
Yeah, certainly. And Porter looks like he's going to stay on the lead lap. I thought he was going to have some required damage, but he was down 200 RPM, so definitely look for that 28 to have some trouble here in the last couple laps. There you see the official points. Kyle Benson in second, 20 behind Porter, and Kelly 31 behind Porter. That's really the front portion of the field. Yeah, he has a good run going for him right now, running in the 4th spot, so if we're not careful, you can see the top 3 cars all within 5 or 10 points of one another.
And that's going to make for a exciting show at Charlotte next week for sure before we head into the Thanksgiving break. And they'll have a week to think about that before Martinsville. But I did see Tyler Murray say in the chat earlier that Martinsville may be in question after today's show. So we'll have to keep everybody in the loop on that one.
Well, that's something that stood out to all of us when the season schedule came out, that Martinsville was returning for the first time since Check of the Watch Season 2. It's been several years since 4Wide has run Martinsville in this Cup capacity. So, yeah, it seems like definitely in reservation that use of Martinsville Speedway.
I think there's a reason it hasn't been on the schedule.
Right.
So, they're definitely going to take a look at that after today's show and maybe think twice about that decision. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I was just going to say that I voted personally for an Indianapolis replacement.
That'd be a good one. A Brickyard race. I said Atlanta Super Speedway because if he goes Legacy Atlanta followed by Atlanta Super Speedway, bookend the Christmas break with a couple Super Speedway races, I may run both of them. Oh,
not bad,
throw me in there.
You could also throw in the storyline of how much will that change the approach for the drivers if Martinsville's not added in the schedule. If there was a driver who could win at Martinsville, does that get eliminated if we change tracks? When you change the season, you will change the storylines of the playoffs. We'll see what that happens, though, but Tyler ultimately will give us the green light on what the decision properly is. This race is still not over. 13 laps to go. Scott Healy gets on the front row for the first time, but he cannot beat Hawken. Back to turn 1. Healy under fire from Benson in the middle of the corner, Francisco.
And Benson almost gets into Healy in the process, trying to retake that second spot away, and he gets loose off of turn 2. Healy trying to clear down the back straightaway, and how about Austin Reedy finding his way up in a 4th after being involved in a couple incidents earlier?
Kane's machine is surviving right now. He stays ahead of Curtis Kelly. He's got a bit of front-end nose damage, but Murray Media Motorsports has 2 cars now in the top 5. How about 3 wide around where Tony Kibbett is for the top 10? Daniel Moore and AJ Green split the Chevrolet in turn 1.
This is a huge opportunity for a lot of guys to get a good run with how this race is going. The 77 of Daniel Moore and the High Rock Vodka machine battling it out with AJ Green, who has been everywhere on the racetrack today. You see Moore taking the high side of this corner down to the 3rd gear. Going to try to get the run down the straightaway to keep it ahead of Green, and he will do so successfully. Good run for that 77 car.
Done a great job of staying afloat, and we are about 3 wide near the back of all of this. Craig Lounslager is in the middle of all of it with Craig Rowe and CJ Munier, who slides in 1 and 2. He'll save the Chevrolet, and that escapes another caution inside 10 laps to go.
Kevin D'Elia had his own moment at the same exact time, and he's actually going to almost get ran into by Michael Newbro, who takes evasive action into the outside wall to prevent any kind of contact there. It is a hornet's nest back here in the outside the top 10.
They are fighting for what it's worth. While Brandon Hawken is up by 1.3 seconds, Kyle Benson finally snuck by Scott Healy with under 10 laps to go. It's the question of whether he can catch up. But Brandon has been in cruise control all race long, Keelan.
Oh, Tony Kibbett around.
Oh, Tony Kibbett involved. And the caution flag is out again. And that will do it, it appears, for Tony Kibbett.
And Timothy Cook also had a piece of it in that one. It looks like those two, once again, making contact off of turn 2. Looks like it started further up with Tony Kibbett getting sideways. I think it was 2 separate incidents. Kibbett loose off the corner. He actually saves it, makes contact with nobody, but the 19 of Timothy Cook that actually spins out a little bit more aggressively than him.
Yeah, 2 separate.
And ends up bringing out the cautions, yeah.
Cook in the 19 went around a lot more aggressively than Kibbett did. Kibbett got a good save off of it. It was kind of interesting. We were almost all the way off the corner before Kibbett snapped sideways. Cook just smacked the wall, and then he broke it sideways to not run over the spinning kivets. So 2 separate incidences, but we see that sometimes off these corners, Francisco, at really any track you go to. They just follow each other into the fence, and it creates kind of a chain reaction scenario, because a lot of times you're basing your braking points and your throttle up points on the guy in front of you, and that could have been one of the scenarios that we saw right there.
Here's Juan Escamilla getting his lap back. He was a lap down in 26th place. And so he will get his lap back here. Lance Hill, it appears, also was part of that lucky dog conversation quite a bit. The next car a lap down is, give or take, Lawson Peel, who spent the majority of this race fighting at the front, now has to rebound at the back. That's a big-time shunt for 2 of the former series champions, both of them with the next-gen car. Season 4 for Peel, Season 5 for Jaden Porter. And this race has shown the ugly side of 4 wide. It's been really tough to see all of them be involved in the incidents tonight. And once more, Francisco, we are in the realm of a potential overtime restart. Back in Season 5, when we ran this race last at New Hampshire, it only took 1 attempt to finish this race under green, and it was the man by the name of AJ Green who took the checkered flag. Possible opportunity that we could see another race extended in overtime tonight.
It wouldn't shock me, Kenneth, if we ended behind the pace car like we are right now with the way everything is going, but it's going to come down to, if we get into that situation, can they get to the white flag? It would only take 1 lap, but we've seen things happen on the first corner of a restart. So it really just depends on what these drivers do when they get to that situation, how aggressive they'll be for that overtime restart. I tell you, but the only thing left to happen in this race is the pace car wrecking like it did at Phoenix.
Oh no, we do not want to see that happen. The pace car gets involved in an accident. Thankfully, it's AI, so it basically gets everything right for the most part.
I will say, with the sharp, aggressive turns it makes here on iRacing, it would look very much like that Phoenix incident.
It would, but thankfully we may not see that happen with the shenanigans on the pace car side of things. And talking about the added pace car that iRacing will give all of us on the sim, that is one of the many updates that we'll see in the next several weeks for the iRacing 2025 Season 1 build. Guys, it's going to be really exciting what we get there. We're not only getting a revamped New Hampshire Motor Speedway as part of the NASCAR refresh and prior of NASCAR 25, we may also get a revamped Las Vegas Motor Speedway, which hopefully we'll get that come All-Star break. That'll be amazing if it reaches the new build. We also have the Miami F1 circuit getting scanned and ready for the sim. I know Francisco and I are excited about that. The Ferrari 499P, a new hypercar added to the sim. Bump starts are finally getting added with that switch from the hybrid engine to the full power of the motor behind the hypercars. It's going to be an exciting build, and there's plenty more that we haven't talked about, but for the road racing fans, it's fun. For a bit of the oval fans, it's a really good dose of content, and we're excited.
Big win all around.
Yeah, what they may change too with these next-gen cars now that the NASCAR season is over, what more data they may have from NASCAR to change this car and give us some more things to talk about this season. It's a restart inside 5 laps to go, and it's all in the control of the Canadian Brandon Hawken, who will take us back to the green. He does the same thing he's done every single restart, it appears. Kyle Benson sends the block to Healy, who sends Benson up the racetrack for P2.
He's going to be nose to tail with his teammate of Austin Reedy as they are side by side for second. Almost trouble back there with Pandicio in the 63. He slid down there into Daniel Moore. Good job keeping it under him as they are 3 wide going into 3. He nearly slides up into green. Tyler Murray, the league owner, where has he come from? He's back there trying to get in this swarm of race cars up here as the battle continues for the second position with 4 laps to go.
And somehow AJ Green, despite everything that's happened, he's in P6 with a chance to grab some good points out of it. P2 is still up for grabs with 4 laps to go. Scott Healy on the inside in his Chevrolet fighting the Ford Mustang Dark Horse up top. They may make some contact, and they're letting Brandon Hawken pull away to the tune of about 1 second and 1/10. 3 laps to go this time.
It's all Brandon Hawken right now. He's just been the guy all afternoon. It's just going to come down to, do we get another yellow?
And Benson gets turned by Healy. He'll go up the racetrack, and he saves it.
And look at Austin Reedy now find his way up into 3rd. He's going to have a run here on Scott Healy to try and take the 2nd spot away. As Craig Parks is around, that's going to probably no caution.
He saves it in the grass. No yellow flag. We could get to this race on the white flag. Brandon Hawken gets 2 laps to go, Keelan.
And what a story it has been for Brandon Hawken. Came in this here last season, missed the playoffs after winning almost about 5 races. He's come in here with 2 victories in the last 3 races. And as you see Austin Reedy and Scott Healy behind him, car almost around there off of turn number 2. They're going to try to make it back to the white, and it's going to be all the Canadian Brandon Hawken if he does.
He's all by himself. It's now 2 seconds, and we will get to the white flag. So this race is official. No, it's not. Yellow flag is out, and we're headed into overtime.
Just like we saw at Richmond, Francisco, with Brandon Hawken coming to the white flag, the yellow milliseconds before it. We'll see if we can get a frame of that, Francisco, like we did last time, because it was right there.
And wouldn't you know it, it comes at the hands of Tyler Murray.
Oh no.
And we had a spinning Daniel Moore on the back straightaway, but that was under the racing line, so there was no yellow there. But Tyler Murray in the Invicta machine.
Tagged by Kivett right there. Got tagged by Kivett, and it's a big stack up. And the yellow came just right before Hawken took the white. So he's just going to get tagged from behind by Kivett, and that's what shoots his race car around. Murray finally got some track position after being kind of behind the 8 ball all day. And the unluckiness continues to pile up for that 36. I want to know how close we were, dude. That was insane.
So watch this. Off of turn 2, there's where Moore spins. He just kind of gets loose on his own and overcorrects it into the bottom. And then right here, we have there Murray on the outside getting loose, and then just nowhere for Kivett to go. And that sends the whole thing in action. I'll try and get you that frame here.
Lots of Chevrolets in there. Brendan Banks getting tossed around. Tyler Murray, obviously Nicholas Baumann was at the bottom of that, just barely getting away. And the caution flag again raises right as Brandon Hawken is seeing the white flag. We got a better look at that when the yellow lights came on.
Hawken just couldn't have a win without drama, right?
It's right there.
Well, it's still green there, and he's already passed the line. So, and you know how they say there's a delay.
I think that delay may have come into effect right there.
There's the yellow light. So if we just try and back it up to about there, technically the race would be official if it was perfectly scored, because there you see he is well past the start-finish line when we saw that yellow light turn on.
So it is nowhere in discussion, because Richmond, he was right there, right? He was right before the start-finish line. Tonight, he is way past it. That would have easily been a white flag.
And we could use Scott Healy here as an example, because you can see the green light, and when it turns yellow, watch.
Yeah. Yeah, he's well past it, but you know, it's you're never going to get it perfect on a simulator like this, so a bit of a delay is a given, and seems that's what happened right there. We can probably go in the race logs after this and find the actual timestamp to the 10th of a second, millisecond, and really get down to it and see when the sim decided it was time to throw the yellow, as the lights obviously didn't react. You know, there was the story with the yellow at the Charlotte Roval with Parker Kligerman that we always went by, you know, it's when the lights come on, but apparently it's when the button comes on, and there's a delay in real life too. So it's there's always a story to talk about with officiating in NASCAR and like this.
Well,
matters now, since we're in overtime for the first time tonight. Second straight time here in New Hampshire where we will extend this race past scheduled distance. We are set to go green with 2 laps to go, and here's how it goes in overtime. We will double them up like this, have the restart, and try to end this race under green. If the yellow comes out before the leader reaches the white flag, we'll do it all over again, and we have 3 attempts to finish the race under green. If the leader does get the white flag, then this race will be official no matter what. If we exhaust all green-white checkered attempts, the leader at the timing of the last yellow will be the winner. Green flag in the air from New Hampshire Motor Speedway with 2 laps to go.
That was a Healy, but not good enough, because look at Hawken, how he's able to roll that center through. Healy gets a good enough exit. The thing is, he basically has to lunge the race car to even stand a chance, but just Hawken has been too quick tonight to really make that kind of move work. So Hawken trying to see if he could get to the white flag with extra room this time, and it doesn't look like there's a wreck anywhere off this final corner, so this race is official.
This race will come down to just one overtime attempt. Brandon Hawken has been flawless all night long, and despite a bit of strategy, he's been able to keep his upper hand. Scott Healy is about half a second back with a potential punch to launch, but the Sucker Punch Chevrolet of Brandon Hawken for the third time this season will be a 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series winner, and this time it's from New Hampshire.
Kevin D'Elia and Lance Hill on the final lap had two separate incidents, resulting in multiple positions lost, finishing outside the top 20.
Kyle Benson, he got back up to third. I was curious if we may see a little bit of payback to Healy after that moment they had a couple laps back, but nothing happening there. But Brandon Hawken dominates. Tony Kivitt leads the second most laps, and that's 3 of the last 4 for Brandon Hawken. So he is on a Linsanity run right now, Kenneth, as he's going to go to Paul's setup shop victory lane again.
It is his 8th career 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series win, and his 2nd at a short track this season. Brandon Hawken wins the race and brings his Chevrolet to Paul's setup shop victory lane.
He's definitely going to take this momentum with him to New Orleans this weekend, right, Kenneth?
He will.
He's got to be up in the morning. We better not keep him too late.
He loves to talk to us. Why would you take that away from him?
No, I'm just saying you don't want to keep him up too late. But he's always excited to be up here. He'll probably keep himself here too late.
Yeah, that's
we
what
know
I mean.
Brandon.
He's a happy camper. He'll use the momentum from this race win, head out to New Orleans, and try to win there as part of the Prodigy 3 Racing League, and it is his 3rd win this season. You're right, Keelan, 3rd in the last 4. Could have easily been 4 in a row had he won at Chicagoland, but he dominates this one from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and that is all she wrote. It was a big-time win for Brandon Hawken. We'll try and get the full unofficial results here from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where up at the front is, no surprise, Brandon Hawken, who wins this race and leads over 100 laps. Scott Healy finishes right by in 2nd. That is his best career finish in this series this season. Haven't seen much of him, but he made an impression tonight. Kyle Benson had a consistent run over the course of the race, and trailing Jaden Porter for the points lead by 20. He could easily cut into that gap with this podium finish tonight. Austin Reedy makes it Murray Reedy Motorsports with 2 Ford Mustangs in the top 5. Curtis Kelly continues his run. P5 he gets here at New Hampshire. AJ Green, the defending winner here, is P6. 7th goes to Craig Lautenslager. Ryan Pandicio in 8th place. Eric Schaefer in 9th. And Adam Alashire, Francisco, survives to finish in the top 10.
Nicholas Bauman in that Mobile 1 machine is going to finish in the 11th spot with teammate Trevor Haley down in 12th. Brandon Banks involved in a couple incidents will round out in 13th. Craig Parks will be in 14th with another Craig Rowe down in 15th. Michael Newbrawl will finish in the 16th spot. Timothy Cook rebounds to a 17th place finish. CJ Munier will end up with an 18th place run. Daniel Moore will be down in 19th, and league owner Tyler Murray, part of that caution that brought out the overtime restart, will round out in 20th.
Back in 21st is Juan Escamilla in the 41 car. Just couldn't find it today after being involved in a few incidents. Christopher Bishop back there in the 22nd position. Our only other leader besides Brandon Hawken this evening finishes in 23rd. That is Tony Kivitt, who played some strategy there. Jaden Porter, his first non-top 10 finish after getting involved in that incident late. Kevin D'Elia back there in 25th. Lance Hill in 26th. Lawson Peel, who also ran up front all day today up until the closing laps, finishes in 27th. Cody Kinsey 28th. Stephen Maggio, who wrecked from 2nd place in 29th, and Dusty Applin, the rookie, back there in 30th.
Back in 31st is Colin Forrester, who crashed out of this race early. Brandon Gillis suffered nearly the same fate back in 32nd. Steven Stempian, our KBRN in-race reporter and hometown driver, could not see the race past about 12 laps or so. 143 laps down is where he is. 34th is Mikey Neal, and Jesse Prees brings the end of the 35-car field from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Let's get a word with the race winner, Brandon Hawken, who for the 3rd time this season will celebrate in Paul's setup shop Victory Lane. Brandon, welcome back to Victory Lane in 4 wide. It is your 8th career victory, a big one from New Hampshire. I'm sure this one must feel good, even despite all of the yellows that got you there.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I'm glad we made it at least on the second green white checker. The first one, I was at least on our end, I was like I don't know, at least like 5 car lengths ahead of the start finish line. Then the yellow came out and had to reset the lap. So I was like, oh man, we got to do it all over again. But yeah, I'm glad to come home with it. That was like from the green flag stuff we did get. It was a lot of fun. It was really tricky to drive, and you definitely had to be on it the whole time, because there was a lot of, like, if you washed up a little bit too much in 1 and 2, the back end would step out, and then of course with these cars they're extremely stiff, and so yeah, you had to really be careful with your inputs, and so yeah, that was fun. I was had a good race there. Scott, Kyle, Lawson, yeah, a bunch of others. That was some good stuff. Yeah, took a little bit of a long time, but you know what? I'll take the result. That was good.
And with this win, you get your 3rd in the last 4. And like I said, could argue that you could have gotten 4 in a row here in this series if Chicagoland hadn't come down to being 1 spot short. How meaningful does this win feel, especially after Chicagoland? I know you had a lot of fun there, but it was still 1 spot short of victory. So does this feel a little bit like redemption?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I felt like I had some really good speed. Had of course, yeah, a fantastic battle there last week, and I was just a little bit short. Came up a little bit short, but I felt this time I did everything like to the best I could, and made sure to. Well, I got lucky there, I guess, with the way the caution came out after that. I think we had a run of about like 10 laps or so, right towards the end of the fuel run, and it was getting really close on gas on whether we'd have to. Or like me, and I'm not sure who else hadn't pit at that point, but it was going to be really close to having to pit under green flag, and that wouldn't have been very good. So yeah, they had about 8 laps of gas left when the caution came out, and that allowed me to skip the pit stop earlier while everybody else followed me in. So that helped a lot, and so yeah, everything just played out well, and yeah, I felt like it did everything right, and so it was a nice clean race for the 98 machine. It was. I'm glad I didn't get caught up in anything. It seemed like a lot of action was going on behind, but yeah, I was happy to come home clean and yeah, get the win here.
After season 6, you had 5 wins on that calendar year. In your rookie campaign, you were 14th on the all-time wins list. You put in 3 more this season, and right now you're tied for 3rd on the all-time wins list with Eric Schaefer. So what does that mean to you to make the imprint in such a quick time as you've been able to do it and put yourself on the list of some of the greatest 4-wide drivers that we've seen?
That's really cool, because yeah, man, like Eric had a lot of really great battles with him there, especially last season, and it's yeah, man, it's really cool. Come here and do well, and yeah, I'm hoping to climb that leaderboard a little bit further, but yeah, we'll see. It's been some really close racing all throughout, so man, yeah, it's I've had some really good races here, but yeah, looking forward to hopefully having some more.
Well, Brandon, it's another great win, this time from Loudon, New Hampshire. We hope that we can give you somewhat of a virtual lobster to celebrate, but not sure how that goes. But before we let you go, anybody in particular you want to thank for tonight's win?
Yeah, just like thank you guys on the broadcast as always. Everybody at 4 Wide. I know Tyler. He had a lot to deal with tonight. So yeah, good stuff for him. Yeah, he did a great job admitting, and yeah, just everybody showed up. Sucker Punch, of course. Gonna do some real life racing there on the weekend. So that's gonna be great, and. Yeah, I guess yeah. Next week we got. I'm not sure what track we're at, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a really good time.
We're going to be at Charlotte Motor Speedway, so I'm sure that'll be another great track for you and for the rest of the field. And we obviously got to send our congratulations to you for being drafted to the Prodigy 3 Racing League, and we only wish you the best of luck when you take the real life track this weekend at NOLA Motorsports Park. So our best wishes to you there. Congratulations on the win tonight from New Hampshire, and hopefully we'll see you next week at Charlotte.
Thank you guys. See ya.
That is Brandon Hawken, an 8-time race winner in 4-wide history. He wins this one, leading 147 laps to the making. Scott Healy is the one who finishes second. Francisco Bacalhau has him.
Well, Scott, it's best of the rest, if you will. Looking at the entirety of the field tonight, you kind of just showed up out of nowhere. You were fast, and you kept your car clean there in the closing stages. Kind of walk us through the process of just going through this race with the amount of cautions and what it took handling this difficult handling race car to bring it home P2.
I don't even know what happened in the beginning. I was on the outside. All of a sudden, all I know is I'm just getting smacked in the door, spinning out, and collecting some damage in the beginning of the race. I had some wheel damage, so that kind of hurt me. All I could really do was keep going back into the pits, keep trying to fix it, come out, keep trying to fix it without getting a lap down. I managed to do that with all the crashes tonight. I mean, I don't know, just this track is good. The setup's bad. It's just I don't know why we had this many cautions, but it is what it is at that point. All I could do was hope and pray, just try to get back up there. Thankfully, my car handled a lot better once I got it all fixed up. And then near the end of the race, I got clobbered on the side, which collected me to have more damage. I was like, well, it's too late for me to go back into the pits to try to fix it, so we'll see what I can do with it. I think I could have really had a shot with Hawkins at the end if I didn't have any damage, but like I said, it is what it is. I just had to manage whatever I had.
It was a really good, persistent race for you to be able to recover and bring it home P2, Scott. This is your second start of the season. We saw you at Watkins Glen. We have Charlotte coming up next, a track that saw you hoist the championship trophy in a couple seasons ago. Are we going to be seeing you more often as the center part of the season kicks through?
Hopefully. I know my work season's coming to an end, so hopefully I can come into more races. Charlotte's one of my strongest tracks, so we'll see what I can do at Charlotte. Thankfully, it's my birthday that day too, so maybe I can come in with really good momentum. We'll just have to see for the 20th.
Well, happy early birthday to you, Scott, and for here at New Hampshire, give you the stage to give the shout-out to everybody who helps make this possible for you and your number 64 team.
There you go. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank you guys for bringing it on broadcast, everyone who makes these races possible, everyone that comes out to race, everyone who comes out and watch, my friends, family, my girlfriend, Team Conti, and all their sponsors. And yeah, man, that's really it.
Well, appreciate the time you take with us, Scott, and like I said, happy early birthday. We hope to see you out there next weekend, or next week.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
That's Scott Healy in the 64 car, who comes away with second place, and third place is the Hey Dude machine of Kyle Benson, strong all night long. Keelan, you've got him.
Well, Mr. Benson, we welcome you to the booth this evening as you have the lowest step on the podium right there, but it is on the podium, so congratulations on that. Yeah, you ran in second a lot. You ran in second and third a lot. Had a little bit of contact with a couple guys up there. You were racing. Kind of got somebody overcorrected into the fence. But take us through your race and how it went this evening to get you into third.
Well, Hawkins very fast, so we were just kind of tailing him all night, but it was all right. I can't complain. I'm third, so I haven't had a podium in a while, so it was nice to get that. It was just it was tight in, loose off, but it just kind of blended together. I don't know. The setup's not very good, and these cars are very, very touchy when it comes to this track, so kind of knew what we were getting into, but definitely one of those races of all time. We just had a lot of cautions that probably shouldn't have happened, but can't change it now. It is what it is, kind of.
It definitely was an attrition war, but you're about the only one who beat the commentator's curse, by the way. I mean, I complimented your paint scheme when I was asked about it, and you were about the only one that didn't end up in a tragic wreck. It almost happened there in the closing stages, but you hung on to it. But a positive to take from tonight, with your third place finish, you hop over Jaden Porter and you take the points lead by 4. What's that mean to you as you set your eyes closer to the playoffs, as now we're one race away from halfway in the regular season?
It's big. Being able to beat Jaden, and me and him would kind of swap on the lead. most of this year he kind of ran away from me after I think it was one of the races that we had. But it's good to finally get back to the top of the podium. Good to be at the top step of the points. I knew that when he got in his accident, I had a good chance of taking the points lead. So just kind of bided my time and just tried to survive at the end. And had a few runs with Scott. I mean, we just racing hard. We've been racing hard with each other forever. So other than that, though, I mean, it was kind of fun. I'm happy that I got the points lead.
And definitely for sure that points lead huge as you continue to look for a win to punch your ticket and not have to worry about the points, which is obviously what everybody wants to do. But a third place finish tonight from New Hampshire. Go ahead and thank everybody you want to thank for putting this thing on.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for holding on and watching us, be, idiots all night. But, it happens. We have those bad races here and there. But I'd like to thank MRMS. Good dudes. Really got a good finish after, going back and forth all night. And Tyler kind of threw away a good race, but he ran good all night. Same with Chris and Craig. They always run pretty good. They're kind of like our fullback, always clearing a hole for us. But other than that, though, I'd like to thank everybody that comes in the forward every week, and I'll see you all next week.
Yeah, I mean, every good football team needs a good fullback, so you can't go wrong with that. Just like the Steelers.
Go Steelers.
Go Steelers.
Steelers Super Bowl 7-2, baby.
Well, we appreciate you talking with us, Kyle, and we look forward to seeing you next week in Charlotte.
All right, thank you.
It's Kyle Benson, third place from New Hampshire. I knew there was going to be a Steelers reference somewhere there, but we do have
can't
some
let it
news.
go away.
Yeah, that's true. Can't let it go away. Can't say the same about our Francisco and I's Dolphins, by the way. Well, you're a Jaguars fan, but the Dolphins from Miami are not good right now. But that does leave us to another point. Change. We're going to see a lot of that from here until next Wednesday. We did get word from league owner Tyler Murray that we will see a schedule change before next Wednesday's outing at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So what you will see on screen right now will not be reflective of the changes that league owner Tyler Murray will make, and the admins will deliberate on what is the best course of action from now until then. Particularly, Francisco, they're circling that Martinsville date that'll come across to us in mid-December. They seem to probably think that's going to be the place of change.
Well, I have gone on the record of claiming New Hampshire as mini Martinsville, even though it is the larger racetrack, but it kind of usually replicates itself over to the half-mile racetrack. So if we saw this tonight, I guess the mindset for them is they're going to see the exact same thing on that racetrack. And we've had our fair share of those kinds of experiences here on the KBueno Racing Network, so I think Martinsville's one to be circled. I think maybe they're also looking at another track, possibly like North Wilkesboro. Just these short tracks in general are just going to be ones to watch, the flat, short racetracks. We've raced Phoenix plenty of times, never really had issues there. So I think, namely, Martinsville is definitely the one they're going to be looking at. They've been talking about that already in the Discord channels, but certainly wouldn't be a surprise to me if they were to do something about that North of Wilkesboro day, potentially, especially with it being a playoff race. Tyler's exact words in the channel were he's going to evaluate risk versus reward when it comes to each of these racetracks. So it's not just Martinsville. They're going to value a couple of these flat, short racetracks and potentially move on from them, or potentially just completely eliminate them. We'll just have to see what exactly the decision making is going to be there from the racing from that aspect. But before I talk to you guys on that, I do want to point out that of tonight's contestants, only one driver that completed laps in tonight's race finished the race with a 0x, and that was, of course, your race winner, Brandon Hawkins.
It seems like no surprise. He led the most laps. He's the cleanest car all night long. He escaped all of the trouble, and even with the strategy, was still able to come away with the top spot. So you're right there, Francisco, on what we should expect to see change-wise. Right now, though, we do not expect to see a change from this race to the next one, which will be Charlotte Motor Speedway. That race seems to still be on the schedule for now. Probably won't be in consideration from the admins. That track has treated us to a ton of great racing. The last time we were there, TJ Bursk was able to capture the win in his dominant first half of Season 6 with the Xfinity Series cars, but as Charlotte has played a role as a playoff race, we've seen Craig Lautenslager win there by several thousandths of a second. Jaden Porter win there as well in dominating fashion. So Charlotte will be a ton of fun. You won't want to miss it. That'll be our last race before the Thanksgiving break officially. That race comes your way on Wednesday, November 20th. You'll find the coverage at 8:45 p.m. Eastern for the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show, and then the actual green flag at around 9:05 p.m. Eastern. You can find all of that coverage and more on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. That will do it for our coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. From New Hampshire, for Tyler Murray and the entire admin council at 4Wide Racing for making this possible, for Charlie Beyer at the KBueno Racing Network, and for my crew on the broadcast tonight, my colleagues in the booth, Francisco Bacallao and Keelan Belsha, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Loudon. Brandon Hawken has the virtual lobster in hand. We'll be at Charlotte Motor Speedway 1 week from tonight.